of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. Tonight we are in South Haven Elementary. Thank you, Mr. Masico, for hosting us this evening. This meeting is live streamed and uploaded onto YouTube if you would like to look at them at your convenience. This is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation as indicated on the agenda. The meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodations must contact the superintendent at the school corporation central office. Our mission is to educate, empower, and inspire excellence. There is a public comment form in front of Mr. Elwood. If anybody would like to speak under other, if you could please fill out the form and return it into the same spot there. I'd appreciate it. I would like to first kind of change the agenda up a little bit, and I'd like to request that the board that we make an agenda adjustment and that we actually on the agenda have the good news report from first, and then we move on to the superintendent's consent agenda, the board consent agenda, old business and new business, and then we can come back to the three underneath the student and staff presentations, the three report out. For those of you who would possibly like to go see the Bears tonight and not have to sit and wait through to the.
Great, thank you.
That does
Did
not
that count me?
No, that does not include you, sir. So with that being said, do we have a motion to change the agenda as stated?
Make a motion to change the agenda as stated.
I'll second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
And Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. And so next, we'll move on then to good news report. Mrs. Devers-Lowy.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
So my interns and I decided to change up the way that we do the district-wide newsletters and change it to a weekly format instead of a monthly format. And our families and community members have really appreciated this switch. It was actually a suggestion that Mr. Maleta made at a meeting recently to offer shorter bits of information to make it a little bit easier for everybody to consume. So it's very sensitive to people's times while still being informative as well. So this first newsletter was from 2 weeks ago. We covered the high reliability schools and proficiency scales by discussing the power of I can statements. And we really focused on how parents can have good conversations with their children regarding what they're learning in the classroom, and then how it serves as a better indicator of how students are performing. Next, we showcased Homecoming Week, which is this week. So lots of events that we're trying to really push to the community and get the community to attend. So Powder Puff Game is coming up this Wednesday at 6 p.m. The Portage Homecoming Parade is this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. And then, of course, the home football game is this Friday at 7. And then they are having a PHS homecoming dance this Saturday at 7 o'clock. And what the kids are calling HOCO Propose for homecoming proposals have been super fun to watch and see the different clubs and groups post. Next, we covered bus safety being a community effort, really showcasing to the community that they just need to watch for our kids at all times, and that includes being on the road so that we can make sure that they get to and from school safely. September is Attendance Awareness Month. So we've been doing some social media pushes with that, showcasing to parents the importance of their children coming to school and coming to school on time. And we gave parents some tips that they can follow to help with that as well. Moving on to good news, the Chrisman Elementary School 5th graders are hosting their annual carnival coming up Saturday, October 5th from 12 to 4 at Chrisman. And they host that rain or shine, and last year it was rain, but hopefully this year they get a little bit of sunshine. Fakeley Middle School recently hosted their walkathon, so any student who raised $150 or more came to Mrs. Caballero's office with a friend, and they got to enjoy lunch from Five Guys. And they got to order anything that they wanted from the menu. Sixth grade teacher, Mr. Heimberg, visited with them, as did Mrs. Caballero's son, Lance Corporal Caballero, and he is a member of the U.S. Marines. So he came and spoke with them about what it's like to be a part of the U.S. military. Portage High School hosted their jazz combo night, and they live stream all of those performances, and those are available on Facebook, so we included that as well, so families can go back and listen to that. Fakeley Middle School has been giving their students the opportunity to have lunch in the library, so they enter a drawing every time they read a complete book, and if their name is drawn for that week, then they can skip the lunch line and bring 2 of their friends to the media center. And it's a great place for them to go and just kind of take a break, and they can play some games, they can be on their iPads, and they've been really enjoying that time. Myers Elementary School hosted their annual Pinwheels for Peace on September 11th. Local first responders joined the students in placing pinwheels outside of the school to remind everyone that kindness contributes to a peaceful community. Mr. Wilkins and Mr. Heimberg held a professional development session on how to use Schoology for Fakeley 6th grade teachers a couple of weeks ago. So they taught them about how to link courses, publish assignments, include links, create assessments, all things Schoology. And the teachers, I've heard lots of positive feedback from that. We had to do a little feature on Portage High School's Compassionate Canine, Isaiah, because he is my #1 reaction getter on Facebook. Anytime I post about Isaiah, people love it. So they took some pictures of him interacting with some of our freshman students a couple of weeks ago. Central Elementary School, this is actually a really cute little video that they posted on their Facebook page from Central Elementary School. Every day, Mrs. Slack, who is their school's school advisor, leads the students in a mindful breathing exercise. So it's a way for the students to start the day with a clear mind, and they've been really enjoying it. So this is Mrs. Cruz's class doing that. Moving to this past week's good news report. Had lots of great things as well. We talked to parents about myschoolbucks.com, which is where they can load their accounts with lunch money. They can also sign up to receive alerts from MySchoolBucks anytime their account reaches a certain balance, and really walks them through that process. So we gave them some steps to sign up and manage their account. Our next mobile marketplace is going to be Thursday, November 14th at Portage High School from 4 to 6 p.m. We are going to be hosting a vaping symposium and information night on Wednesday, October 16th. Mr. Brian Jones, who's an associate principal from the high school, is going to be helping me out with that, along with our school resource officers, and we are lining up some really great speakers for that symposium. So some of the good news from last week, Kyle Elementary School hosted their Laps for Learning fundraiser, and together they collected $8,800 to buy a new sound system for their school. Portage High School West, our manufacturing class, has been working with our Portage print shop, and they've been hanging these amazing new banners in the B hallway at West. And those banners showcase the different options that students have available to them once they graduate high school. And it's everything from branches of the military to trade schools to vocational programs to Indiana colleges. And it looks fantastic. They did a really nice job. Our last mobile marketplace, going back to that, we served 150 families in September. I would like to personally thank our ROTC students who join me every single mobile marketplace and volunteer with me. That's how they gain some of their hours. This week we also had one of our local salons help. It was my sister's salon, but she and her coworkers came and volunteered with us, as did our school resource officer at the high school. One of the advisory classes at Will Creek Middle School, Mrs. Shire's class, took her students outside last week, and they had drawn positive messages in chalk on the sidewalk leading up to the building. It was very, very sweet. This was an awesome day that I got to go to. This was Fakeley Middle School's DEAR Day, and DEAR stands for Drop Everything and Read. And every single student at Fakeley Middle School dropped everything and picked up a book. Some of the family members came in. So it was really neat to see some of the parents coming in, reading with their kids and encouraging them. Their school resource officer was reading a book to them. It was a really fantastic day that encourages good literacy skills and practices. Congratulations to our Willow Creek Girls Cross Country team who took first place overall at the Rensselaer Invite last weekend. This is one that everybody loves. Myers Elementary School visited County Line Orchard. Their first grade classes went, and it was very cool. They got a lot of different experiences. They saw the apple sorting machine. They learned how apple cider is made. They got to ride on the tractors, and then everybody got to take home their own bag of County Line Orchard apples. Fakeley Middle School's volleyball team swept the Maryville Pierce game last weekend. Both their 7th and 8th grade A and B teams won, which is pretty impressive. So congratulations to them. And then the very last thing, we talked last meeting about our STEM champs, which are our students who attended the STEM camp this summer, and they're officially named STEM champs. And this is one of our students in action. His name is Levi. And so he has been helping, teaching his students how to do CAD animation in their innovative learning lab and 3D print one of the creations that they made. So excellent job to him. And that is the good news report.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great things happening. Thank you for the suggestion, Mr. Miletta. It's a great format. Next, we're going to move on to the superintendent consent agenda. I'm going to make a motion to approve the personnel report for September 2019, the donations for September 2019, the claims report for September 2019, and the facility use report for 2019. Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Moving on, I'm also going to make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of August 26, 2019, the minutes of the discussion meeting of September 9th, 2019, the minutes of the executive session of September 9th, 2019. Do we have a second, please?
I'll second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Next, we'll move on to old business. We will need to have a motion to approve the second reading and approval of the tag policy.
I make a motion to approve the second reading and the approval of the tag policy.
A second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
And Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Next, we'll move on to new business. We have the teacher evaluation document changes, and we'll need a motion on that.
Make a motion to approve the teacher evaluation document changes.
I'll second.
Dr. Alanez?
Yes, I wanted to provide insight regarding the changes to the document. As the board is aware, we utilize an adaptation of the RISE document that the state has recommended. And through this, I just want to share that, of course, that this is putting students first, according to Public Law 90, focusing on the individuals who most influence student learning every day, our teachers. So it is a requirement of the state of Indiana that our teachers are evaluated annually, regardless of experience, and also intended to give our teachers meaningful feedback. Also, there is a requirement for student growth data so that it is student-focused and that effective teachers ultimately help our students make academic progress. And there are 4 rating categories also outlined in the Public Law 90, stating that we have to have the distinction between highly effective teachers, needs improvement, and ineffective teachers. So this year's plan update is specifically about just changing the dates. We are using the same RISE rubric as the state.
Questions? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
And Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Next, we'll need approval of the 2019-2020 student parent handbook.
I make a motion to approve the 2019-2020 Student Parent Handbook.
Second. Any discussion? I think a question was asked by a board member, Dr. Alanes, how is this going to be presented to the internal and external stakeholders? And then we know that this is a living document because policies change and this is kind of policy written. How will those exact same stakeholders be informed if something changes on the handbook?
Yes, so one of the common best practices that we've researched is that when there is a change in the handbook, we will be sending out through Peach Jar a notification to families stating the change or the additional policy set forth and on what location they can find it. We will also make sure that that living document, whenever updated, as you stated, is always provided with the link to the parents so that that living document is there and they can see the most updated changes. But we'll also summarize what changes are in place. So for instance, when we go to the policy that the board has this evening, the first reading on the tobacco policy, we will add that to the handbook and make sure to again send it out to families and say, this is the addition in that policy, here's a summary of it, and again, the live link to access the most updated version.
So with that being said, I just asked the attorney, do we have to then re-adopt the handbook anytime there's a change?
No, unless it conflicts, but it wouldn't necessarily conflict just because of policy change.
What about if it's new?
If it's new, you would need to amend it, because you want all your policies reflected in your handbook.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be reflected because it's a living document. Can we approve it as a living document with the changes that we make in policies?
Yes? You can ask that it.
So we don't have to
also
keep changing
amend
it throughout the year?
Yeah, you can just make it one line item, policy and student handbook, and cite the section or the page of the handbook.
Is that what we wanna do?
I think that's a
Yeah,
good
that makes
idea.
sense.
I think that's what we, you don't want to keep coming back.
No.
No,
Because you want it to be living and be able to be updated
right.
more
Electronically.
frequently,
Yes,
right?
so as long as something comes before the board and final approval is on that second reading of a policy, then we'll get that updated and out to parents.
So we also probably then want to try to modify our policies at one time in the year. Obviously, there's exceptions to that as new things arise, but
Correct.
So with that being said, do we need to take away the motion and make a new motion?
yes.
And what would the new motion be?
Well, not in this instance, no, because,
Okay.
yeah. So if we're changing a policy, we need to add the handbook to that motion. But this is simply.
Oh, I
changing-
see. So
adopting
we
the
are gonna
handbook.
be having to approve the handbook every time we make a policy change,
Yes, but it'd be in the same, on the same line item, same motion.
if it's in the handbook.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay? All right, I get it. Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
And Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Next, we're gonna need a recommendation of textbook rental fees K through 8 in high school.
Make a motion to approve the textbook rental fees for K through 8 and high school.
I'll second.
Dr. Allen is?
Yes, I wanted to share with the board that all of these rates have now included our newest instructional materials. As I had shared with you, there was a delay in getting these assessed as Mr. Elwood and I were waiting for some additional information from one of the vendors regarding the breakdown of price. And we received that, I believe, the second week in September, so this is why it is coming to you now. In the future, we will be able to get this assessed sooner, and of course, we will adjust the due dates for our families to reflect the delay in sending it out.
Any questions?
The good news is we were able to lock in some very good pricing.
Yes.
Call the roll, please.
I got one more question.
Oh, sure.
So once these are approved, they'll be available to be able to be paid online,
Correct. Mhm.
and we'll communicate that when
We
that's
will
ready.
communicate that. There will be a live link so that they can access and pay. Families really enjoyed that last year, and we will make sure that's available again. We will also send out a school messenger along with that so that parents know that those rates are now available, and they will have the opportunity to access and pay online or visit any school or the administration center and pay.
Great.
Good.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Next, we need approval of the emergency preparedness plan. I'll make a motion to approve the emergency preparedness plan. Second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion, Dr. Alanis?
Yes, the emergency preparedness plans are in collaboration with our Safe Schools Commission throughout the county. Also, the requirements set by the Indiana Department of Education and for crisis prevention and emergency preparedness. So these plans we do keep these plans confidential, but I can absolutely share with you some of the very benefits of the plans themselves. So you see here, of course, that we have our collaborative and comprehensive approach to school safety that incorporates all of those components and the resources we utilize to include the Indiana Department of Education, the United States Department of Education, the Department of Justice, our Indiana Association for School Resource Officers, and as well as the National Association. We are focusing on Goal 2 for Portage Township Schools and our security team, a culture of collaboration and acceptance in a safe and secure learning environment. The security team, as you're aware, meets once a month and includes reviewing current situations, conducting tabletops, and planning for the security needs of the district. I think it's important to always mention that our security team members are Indiana Safe Schools specialists. You are required in the state of Indiana to have one specialist per district, and we have minimally one per building, and our directors are also trained principals. In addition, this year is that our registered nurses have been certified for Stop the Bleed, and this is an initiative of the district security team as well, and everyone on that team will be trained in October by Nurse Olson and her team of registered nurses. We also have our 2 full-time resource officers and our rotational officers that are incorporated into this plan, and ultimately, again, following the national and the Indiana School Resource Officer recommendations. This is in alignment again to the One County, One Protocol with our Safe Schools Commission, and as you're aware, these are posted in every single room as well as in the identification badges of every employee, a small card so that they have immediate access to all of our prepared drills, and this is also on our school website. School Guard, we have been drastically increasing our numbers with School Guard, and we've had some opportunities, even just this year, where there was an instance where a teacher needed assistance in the hallway. She activated the teacher assist button, which does not notify law enforcement, it notifies everyone in the school building. This was great because it was a teacher at Portage High School West who was in the field house and needed some assistance with a few children, and all individuals that were on their plan period in that moment without having supervision requirements in that moment came to assist. So again, just another example of how School Guard is really helpful, as well as being able to access any on-duty or off-duty first responder in the event of a crisis in that moment. This is just simply the Indiana code for the requirements for a Safe Schools Commission and why this commission was set forth, of course, keeping our students and employees safe. We have common plans, policies, protocols, guidelines, and we have these drills as well that ultimately are intended to mitigate any danger for our children and employees. Also provided here for you are just brief overviews of the very things that our district security team oversees and then the building level security team then takes further action with. So our threat assessments are done and in alignment with the county sheriff's department, our SROs, local law enforcement, first responders, all participate in these threat assessments. We have the controlled access to all of our buildings to include the schools and any other building in the district. Electronic access to our buildings to make sure that we don't have an abundance of physical keys, and security building walkthroughs. So these walkthroughs are intended to provide feedback to the building principal and the building security team to make sure we're following best practices throughout the entire district. Additional requirements of the team include ongoing professional development based on school security, updating our Raptor visitor management system. All 11 schools have been upgraded to the new technology, and that includes the service center and food service, so that all vendors are also checked each and every time they enter, and our front offices. We also have the visitor management system through Raptor, which is an interface so that all visitors are checked through the National Registry for sex offenders. It also allows the opportunity to make sure that there are no issues in regards to custody or court orders that pertain to our children. And then our camera systems throughout the district, outdoor and indoor, to make sure that we have absolute a surveillance system that protects our students and employees as needed. I believe this is the last slide regarding their responsibilities, but as you can see, they are hefty. Replacement and upgrade to the digital radios. This has been an ongoing project, that we've updated our radios so that we have opportunities to not be in the analog system anymore, and it helps tremendously being able to communicate across the entire school district at any moment. We also have our emergency radios that are provided to us by the Portage Police Department, and also radios with the Sheriff's Department, and digital phones with E911 so that any landline phone that is available can automatically make sure, of course, to dial 911 at any time as need be. And those are in every school, in every classroom. This provides for the board and the community the opportunity to see what is entailed in developing the individual school crisis plan. As you can see, again, those are a lot of our drills. Those are required monthly. We also address chemical spills, weather emergencies, if there is a death of a student or staff member. That is all developed in the crisis plan based on leading practices. A great opportunity that I'd like to share accolades of the team, the district security team, as well as each building security team. During the 18-19 audit, all 11 schools were certified on the first attempt by the audit that took place from the Indiana Department of Education to make sure our crisis plans were meeting the requirements set forth in the statute. We had to do that at the district level and then individually at each and every school, and this was an on-site visit. So something to be very proud of, and I look forward to sharing those same results with you for the 19-20 school year. Questions?
Very good.
And kudos to you on certified on the first attempt. That's a lot of work to be able to get certified on that first go around. So kudos to you and the staff for getting that done.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Next, we'll need a motion to approve the critical needs assessment.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Dr. Alanis?
Briefly for you, I've provided an update on how these needs assessments are developed for continuous improvement, again, a requirement by the state of Indiana. However, we in Portage Township Schools take it very seriously and make sure that this is a living document that we actually utilize to improve instructional strategies, ultimately to influence the outcomes for our learners and make sure that the return on investment is always what learning has occurred. So I provided the iLearn state averages for language arts. As you can see here down the left-hand side, it gives the state average for proficiency in the red color, and then in gray, it gives our overall percentage across the district. And as you're aware, 47.9%, less than half of the students in the state of Indiana passed this language arts assessment, and Portage Township Schools was definitely within the ballpark of the state average. And of course, our intentions are to continue to make adjustments in our curriculum and instruction, but looking at those scores, we also know that there were difficulties within that assessment itself and what it was measuring. And again, I want to thank the board for the resolution that was passed to support the intentions of what it means to have a standardized assessment. The math averages were similar in the state of Indiana. You can see that grade 3 on the far right bar chart, they did perform more consistently at grade 3 at a higher percentage rate for passing in proficiency. But overall, again, the grand total in the state was approximately 47%. And again, Portage Township Schools was at 43% overall. So again, making adjustments to curriculum and instruction because we want to be better than average, and we will continue to make sure we're making strides to do that. Also, as you're aware, high reliability schools, we continue to focus on this as it is strictly about building level leadership and the teams and the instructional leadership of our teachers and the professional learning communities in place so that we can drive student achievement. Effective teaching in every classroom, we're following the new art and science of teaching, and as you're aware, that is where we were focusing on relationships in August and, engagement and relationships were September and also August. So we will continue to develop through that high-quality professional development plan that I provided to you and shared a little bit of information on at the last meeting. And then here we have our SMART goals and how they align to our NWEA assessment to increase overall performance on the iLearn assessment, the state assessment for 2020, and also our social emotional learning goals to focus on the overall well-being of our students, because as we know, that safe and secure learning environment ultimately is what drives the first layer of students being able to feel comfortable and safe in the learning environment, to take risks in their learning and know that they have the support of the adults around them. Interestingly enough, when I shared this, it really comes down to, are we developing a plan because the state requires us to, or are we developing a plan because we are looking at this as a roadmap to increased achievement? Are we making adjustments and having quality results but not knowing why? Or are we, if you look at the losing category, we have low results and low understanding of what mistakes we have in place? I like to think we're leading. That's where our intentions are going to be. We have high results. That's our goal, to have high results and a high understanding of why those results are happening so that we can replicate mistakes. However, in this assessment, as you know, we're in the learning category. We have low results, but we have a high understanding of where the deficits are. What are the unmet needs of our students? What are the strengths? We've analyzed the data. We have adjusted instruction and curriculum, and we will, again, make sure that those mistakes are highly unlikely in alignment with high reliability schools. I've shared with the board in the past John Hattie's visible learning. And again, when we're talking about how we replicate the instructional strategies that work for our students, these have the strongest effect on outcomes for learning. And we have to make sure that we have teachers that are, for instance, using micro-teaching. How are they chunking content? Are they lecturing the full time? Our teachers do a really good job of making sure that they do small bursts of new information and then do a quick turnaround where students are then acting with an authentic experience within the curriculum. They actually are in charge and oversight of their own learning and understanding. We also have down in there where you see professional development being a strong effect size. Again, it has to be intentional. There has to be at least a minimum of 50 hours, as I shared with you, within a school year to make it impactful. And ultimately, again, following what the research says in visible learning about how our students learn and what strategies are most impactful. Space, massed practice, making sure that once we have engaged students in new learning that we continue to revisit it to maintain those learning concepts. I provided for you the focus areas for each of the buildings. That focus area 1 is reading, focus area 2 is math, and as I shared, focus area 3 is our social emotional learning and the practices that we have in place to make sure that we're driving increased achievement and overall well-being for our students. We have here the factors that, again, we believe are going to address the needs of our students. All students need to demonstrate proficiency in reading and math, and we are finding that our data correlates strongly that if students are in the 61st percentile, they have a strong likelihood of passing the assessment with the state. As you know, the 50th percentile means you're an average. You're an average learner. You're getting this on target with what is to be expected as you grow and take opportunities within the learning. However, again, the requirements of this assessment were much more further reaching, so we're mindful of that. Students falling below the 61st percentile must exceed regular growth, and we have developed a way for students to be able to do that and a structure for our teachers to also follow. So students in the 31st to 60th percentile are considered in a category called move up. The 1st to the 30th is catch up. And there's a chart that will better explain this so that we recognize where we're filling gaps in student learning if they're more than a year behind, and where we will provide opportunities through our curriculum and what we notice with that NWEA assessment so we can address those gaps. Here is how the chart looks. So students are in a catch-up category, again, if they are ultimately more than a year and a half behind. A move-up category if you can see here where you might be in the move-up category in 3 different columns, because ultimately we also want to celebrate if you go from the first yellow column to the second, because that's growth. And as you know, there's opportunities to impact our students' ability to achieve greater than a school year if we're very intentional about the way that we're providing instruction. And then the keep up category, because again, this is important as well, that the students are on level, we're providing enrichment, and we're making sure that they stay minimally up to where they've been. To provide them a year's growth in a year's time, sometimes you'll find that those students who are in the keep up category, did they grow a full year if they were already above level? And sometimes it's not the case, so we want to make sure we focus on that as well. I provided for you here, as I stated earlier, we want to be leading. And in the ability to be leading, you have to be very mindful of where there are unmet needs, where there are gaps in the achievement patterns across a grade level, across an entire school, and across the grade level district-wide. And here is just an example of a language arts report. This was the reading report for the fall of 2019. And you can see where it provides the reading foundations, approximately what percentage of students are in each of those categories, as well as the literature and nonfiction, vocabulary, and writing. So drilling down to those individual students, and then you can drill down even further and see what areas and specific concepts in the state standards and curriculum that are deficits so that we can group students accordingly and really maximize the power of providing them quality instruction. And this is just an example of the math, and you can see again there, goal areas, number sense, computation, algebraic thinking, geometry, measurement, and data analysis. The reason I wanted to just share this with you is this is the plan of making sure that we have things in place, how we're analyzing things, and the accountability document. That's really what this is. This is the accountability document to say that we're analyzing our fall results and what we're going to do about those. Then we're correlating those results to iLearn performance, and that's where I shared with you the 61st percentile. We're analyzing the iLearn growth and performance model, and who's overseeing that. How are we adjusting the student support model based on that chart I just shared with you, where we see gaps in individual achievement, school achievement, and district achievement. Again, improving instruction in the area of writing is something that has become a significant focus for us. How we continue to have data meetings and what their focuses are on, how we analyze the results to include winter NWEA and spring. Again, this accountability document to keep us all on target. And I believe that's all. Any questions?
Thank you. A lot of hard work by a lot of individuals to put that document together, so we appreciate that.
Yes.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Next, we're gonna, I'll request permission to advertise public hearing for 2020 budget, new tax levies, CPF, and bus replacement plans. Like to open the hearing? No, I don't
No,
then.
that's
All right,
the
sorry.
next meeting, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was trying.
All right, so we just approve it?
Yeah,
All right.
just authorize the issuance of to advertise.
Do we have to vote on it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so then I made the motion.
Second.
Second. Discussion, call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Next, I'd like to make a motion to request permission to advertise a public hearing for GO bond.
Second.
Discussion, call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
And Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Can we do both resolutions in one vote?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolutions R6-2019, preliminary bond resolutions, and resolution R7-2019, declaration of official intent to reimburse expenditures.
Do you have to read those?
No.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
And Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to advertise an additional appropriation for debt service fund. Second, please.
I'll second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to approve the field trip by Portage High School Girls Golf to IHSAA Regionals in Battleground, Indiana, on 9/27 through the 28, 2019.
I'll second.
Discussion. Call the
Good
roll,
luck.
please.
Good luck to
Good
them.
luck to the girls.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
that's right.
yes.
Good luck, ladies.
Pretty awesome.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. And Dr. Elenez, who's the coach for that?
We have Mr. Bonas who coaches, as well as Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Bonas is a PE teacher at Willow Creek, and Mr. Gonzalez is in the social studies department at the high school.
Some good luck, and we
I
hope to
think
see
it's the
him in another
second year.
meeting.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
That's good, yeah, because I haven't, that's good.
Good stuff.
Thank you. We need a motion for the, or we just need the first reading of the policy 5512, use of tobacco. Everybody's got a chance to look at that. Any questions? Dr. Elenez?
This is an update, and I appreciate the opportunity to have this policy updated with the recent information from the Center for Disease Control. I know that Mrs. Oprisco had brought to the board's attention the desire to look at some leading practices, and this incorporates various things to allow for opportunities for our students to understand the harmful effects of vaping.
Discussion? No? Okay. So next, we'll have the first reading for the policy 7440, plant security policy. Dr. Elenez?
Yes, this particular policy, there is an update for you in red, and what I will be seeking, once this comes before you with the second reading, is the opportunity for local law enforcement agencies to be able to monitor our surveillance system during a current real-time crisis in our buildings, and alerting first responders to the crisis situation and how to best handle it while it is unfolding. This is in alignment with our, Porter County Safe Schools Commission, and again, the access would strictly be when there is an active crisis.
So with that being said, when you were discussing the emergency preparedness, you stated that the teacher who needed help, who pushed 911, then the cameras would be accessed then to all these departments once that happened?
That was the teacher assist, so that does not activate 911. That teacher assist just notifies everyone in the building, hey, I've got something I can't handle by myself, and it tells the location of where that teacher is in that moment. So it could be that there is a door that teacher notices is not closing all the way, and she sends that button, I'm just giving a random example. However, if they hit school guard, if they do the actual app to call 911, then yes, that would automatically require us to say, yes, we have an active crisis, there's an active 911 call. Or if there's not an active 911 call, but we have notified we're hearing through radio that there is, something, and we plan to call 911, then we can make sure that those things are instantly being viewed so that we can make sure to respond swiftly.
Or if a fire alarm's pulled?
If a fire alarm is pulled,
That's a
I would say
911.
I would say yes, because it is an active 911. So until we know what the intent of that emergency is, they have the ability to review the surveillance in that active moment. And as you know, that there have been some school safety situations that have unfolded because of an alarm being pulled. So I would venture to say any single crisis situation, whether we know if it's an active threat or not to our students and employees, then we will have that turned on and then have them monitor as need be, or let them know, you know what, that was not an active situation, and call that off.
So then who turns it off? Once it's activated, it's automatic. Is it automatic?
Once it's activated, it is automatic. However, I'll be bringing to the school board an MOU that I worked with Attorney Elwood that specifically states and outlines the criteria for monitoring strictly in a crisis situation. Under no circumstances otherwise is it to be utilized. However, we also don't want to waste those precious seconds
Right.
to turn it on.
Right. So then in Mr. Elwood, in the MOU, it's addressed whose responsibility it is to turn it off.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Any other discussion? No? Thank you. Next, we'll go back to the presentations. So if anybody would like to go and check out the Bears games, you're more than welcome.
I got my cue.
Missed one.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry.
The rollout plan for visitors and information.
Oh, yeah.
Item 7.14,
Oh, okay, so we gotta go.
that was an addition to
Oh.
the agenda.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I see it here. Yes. So we're gonna need a motion for approval of the,
Rollout plan for visitors and information. Item 7.14.
okay, never mind. Okay, sorry. So we're gonna need a motion for approval for the rollout plan for visitors and information.
I'll second. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Discussion, Dr. Alanis, please.
I want to share with you a few things. First of all, I want to share that this rollout plan is specific to the security of our students and employees, and the intention is to make sure we have visitor access management. We are doing this electronically and what they consider to be instantaneous, which is ultimately the best way to monitor access and anyone who's having contact with our students. I would like to also share that saying that this is an instantaneous background check, I want to clarify what it is checking. It is checking the National Sex Offender Registry. It is checking for any custodial concerns regarding a child and/or any court orders regarding our children. So if you come in and you have your ID, you're required to have your state ID, and you are checked through this system instantaneously, we know if someone is on the National Sex Offender Registry or if there is a court order or a custody issue involving one of our students. In the event of one of those three things or all of those three things, that individual would not be permitted to visit our students and in our school. So again, it's about contact with our students and making sure that during the school day, those who have access to our children are not on the National Sex Offender Registry or have any situation involving a custody issue or court order.
So how is access defined? If I come in and watch a musical and I'm sitting in the audience, do I have access to students underneath this policy?
You do. You
Okay.
do have access to students. So each visit to our school would require you to go through this system. It is part of our sign-in procedure. It prints a badge. It gives, it has a photo of the individual as well as the time they checked in. And again, that badge is only printed if there are no alerts for that individual.
Is that just for during school hour visits, or is that other visits?
That is during school hour visits. After school functions to include whether it be an extracurricular game or an after-school back-to-school night, those students are then under the direct supervision of their parent or guardian, so at that time, it would not be required.
And we're not fully staffed.
And we are
as a
not fully
district
staffed
to
during
protect
that
those
time.
children.
That's correct.
So just for clarification, let's say a grandparent comes from another state. Will then, I heard you mention national, but what if there's a problem in another state? Will they pick that up?
Yes, it is a 50-state national search. It will pick up anything from any state. That is correct.
So when someone does that, and scans, and let's say the flag comes up, how will that be handled? Will that person be taken aside and spoken to, or are they gonna be, if it's grandparents saying there's people standing in line, are you gonna reject that person
Okay.
in front of everyone, or is there a plan in place
So
to
there-
take that
and-
person
and
aside
with
so
that-
it doesn't cause any
And with that
commotion?
being said, Mr. Elwood, is that something that we want to give out of how we would handle that in case that were to occur, that individual might know how to vote or to leave? Is that a safety and security issue that we do
Yeah,
not want
that's
to?
probably something we don't want to disclose.
So, yes, what I was going to share is I will happily
Executive.
share
Yes, I
with the
think so,
board
too.
the confidential document that
Yes.
says how that will be handled. However, I think what's really important here is to provide to the community exactly what it's checking for, so that if an individual knows that one of those things are going to show up, they have every opportunity to not attend one of our functions. If they still choose to attend one of our functions, it will be brought up as an alert, and they will not be permitted in. So I do believe that it's really crucial that our messaging includes what it is we're searching for, so that if someone is on one of those situations, we also want them to avoid an embarrassing moment. And
So with that being said, I'm not on no sexual predator list or whatever it's called, but I have a warrant. I have a problem with custody, a court order,
Hypothetically.
hypothetical. Yes.
Oh, that's gonna
Scaring me there a little bit.
Thanks for sharing.
Did I just get censored? All of those type of things. Am I gonna be allowed to come in?
no,
So they will check that.
they will check that,
Okay.
Yeah.
yes.
And that's to protect her.
That
Okay.
is to protect our children and our employees. If we do not know who is in our building accessing our children, we cannot guarantee a secure environment. I must also add that at any moment, at all times, again, the whole idea of see something or hear something, say something, our adults are on at all points, making sure, regardless of someone coming in and getting that badge on them, we are supervising our students. And we are, also our students are very aware of where they're supposed to be. However, it is an additional check that, again, it doesn't take away the responsibility or the active engagement of supervision, but it is an opportunity to make sure that folks who do not belong in our schools and around our students don't have access. And it's the only way to guarantee that.
So during certain events, which staff members would be assigned to that area? Because you're looking at sometimes over 100 individuals that are trying to come in for a 2:00 program. And, a lot of times people wait till the last minute. How can we make sure that is done in a timely fashion and where there's supervision?
Yes.
And let's say a parent volunteer is not the only one there checking people in.
Yes. We are not going forward with having parent volunteers checking individuals in. It will be district security team members. And the rationale, again, behind that is we don't want to put any of our parent volunteers in a situation to have to escort someone off to the side because there's an alert. That should be the responsibility of district administration, and again, something that has to be a priority with the district security team.
So if I'm grandpa and I know that, Grandfather's Day's coming up, I want to do a preliminary get me in pass. Can I do that without scanning my ID during that?
What we have decided to do is that in order to be, again, instantaneous, it needs to be right then the day of. However, because if not, there could be something that was not an alert 2 weeks ago when you submitted this. However, is an alert today. So we need to be instantaneous as best practice would say that we need to.
And the whole concept of what we purchased is to scan the barcode on a state ID. Giving a date of birth or giving a name, I can find that on the internet to match whatever name and date of birth I want. if I get a preliminary pass and I still do not have to scan my ID when I walk in, that is not security. So that's why we purchased this, and it's only the state ID of that day. And we discussed it, then we were gonna have extra scanners and extra individuals. So no, we're not gonna have Grandfather's Day, Parents' Day, district-wide, different schools at different times.
Correct.
You might have just touched on it, so my question was, will you bring in, so if you're having Grandparents' Day here at South Haven, will you bring in those scanners or some
Yes.
additional scanners? But then what will those do to the schools that now don't have a scanner for visitors coming into
We
there?
have an additional plan that I can share with the board on what we will be doing on that day for visitors.
Okay, so, there will be a process and to
There will be a
expedite that. How long
process.
does it take for a person to get scanned and print out their badge?
It takes a matter of a few seconds.
Wilma and
Is
I
that
did it,
quick?
and Dr. Allen is.
Yes.
So it's
We
quick
did
enough?
it. You
Yes.
put your ID in, and it's just automatic.
Yes.
I didn't know what they were checking. Did you know what they were checking?
I didn't know.
No, me neither, and then it prints out the same exact picture of your ID that you put in on your badge with a great big huge date, if I'm not mistaken, so that you know that's the only date that you're
Right.
allowed in.
My only suggestion would be on these Grandparents' Day, allocate more time
Yes.
for this first go-around,
Yes.
because I even know last year, just under normal, I remember it being at Central and being in a line of about 50 people ahead of me just to come in and sign in,
Right.
and it was, so.
And I will tell you, grandparents are notorious for being extremely early. We will probably have people there 2 hours prior.
We didn't do it for
We
our
always
kids.
have chairs set up. We will always make those accommodations and encourage them to come early. We might even throw on a pot of coffee at each school. So, but I do want to mention, as Mr.
And that might
Maleta.
be in the communication that goes out, is to
Absolutely.
encourage them to come early because
Right.
of this process.
Yes, and the other thing I want to mention, as Mr. Maleta just alluded to, the days of signing in with paper and pencil, that's gone. That is not security, and it is not the leading practice as we move forward to truly look at how we're increasing safety in our schools. And I think that when the community sees, as we send out this communication, the intent of it to strictly look for National Sex Offender Registry, court orders, and issues of custody, there'll be more understanding of why we're doing this. Because again, the communication piece, I realize, is significant, and we'll make sure to get that out in multiple measures.
So maybe we ought to let, those know, if I'm gonna be coming to something that day as a grandparent or anything else, if I'm dropping off the child, I can park, scan, get my badge, it's good for that day, and come back.
That is correct.
That would be a good idea, too.
That is a
Or
good
if you're
idea.
out and about around that school,
Yes. That's a very good idea.
yes, that's
Yeah.
great, too. Like
We
you
can
said,
even-
then you could have coffee at any time.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. The students did prepare a video, if you'd like to see it.
Sure.
They started advertising the visitors video, I believe, right, yes, in August, over the summer. And this video is very helpful and provides information that I think will, again, assist in the understanding.
By following our building entrance procedures, visitors to our school can help us ensure that our buildings remain secure. When visiting any of our PTS buildings, we ask that you follow these simple procedures. As you come to the main office, press the call button located outside of the office door. Have your photo ID ready and make sure to state your name and the reason for your visit to the building. The secretary will greet you in the main office and ask you to provide a photo ID. She will run your ID through a scanner and will produce a visitor's badge for you to wear during your visit to our building. Make sure to check out with our secretary at the end of your visit. When visiting a school, remember these key rules. Enter through the main office, have a photo ID ready, state your name and the specific reason for your visit, wear your visitor's badge while in the building, and check out with the building secretary when you are ready to leave. By following these simple procedures, everyone can play an important role in keeping our students and staff safe.
I think we probably should change that to a state ID, to a government issued ID, a passport. Does that work? Or no? You know what, I don't know
Scan a passport.
if a passport will
If you
work. We can
lost your-
check.
You lost your license, can you use a passport?
Okay,
Okay. I mean, it's something
yeah,
to find out.
absolutely. We'll check that. Again, I want to just commend the interns on making that process visible and easy to understand. I will also share with you that there is a document that is just a flyer that explains this again, and we will have it out in the community. We will also put it on our social media pages, and here it is right here. And I want to mention that it specifically states, under visitor procedures, please adhere to the following procedures when visiting any of our schools. And this is just regardless of the intent of your visit. If you're going on a field trip and you have your background check, you're still going to come in and follow the sign-in procedures and have this, again, instantaneous check. And it just breaks it down to those 5 critical areas to make sure that everyone's aware of the policies. Sometimes it's the matter of the unknown. So that's why I think that this flyer and the video will be instrumental so that parents, grandparents, community members that are visiting our schools understand the intent and the process so that they can make sure that it's not the unknown that's keeping them from being active in the school community.
So if we can use a passport, could that be changed then to government ID?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Has anyone addressed the undocumented parent, grandparent? Will that prevent them from even wanting to come to a school event?
We will look into that.
There's gotta be a best practice on that, so.
Yeah, there's.
And is there an opportunity here as well, because of piggybacking off what you just stated, to just have that video running for a little while, just a short period of time in the schools? Because you have those individuals that may not speak the language, but a video just running, a little monitor right in front of the,
In those lobbies.
yeah, in the lobbies, just running so you can see it. You know what the
Yeah.
process is.
Yeah.
Just an idea.
Because we have these at each of our buildings that then can be in the main lobby showing what that process is.
Yeah,
Yes,
Just an idea.
Explaining it right there on the spot when they walk in.
I like
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Great
In
idea.
some of the schools that I looked at, they actually had videos in Spanish or the policies in Spanish or the little card or
Yeah.
as the option to click on.
Do
And
you
our-
speak Spanish?
Okay.
And then, are we sending this to the Bonner Center since Grandparents' Days are coming up?
Yes, yes,
Somebody
we absolutely
Let them put it
are.
on one of their monitors in there.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
in that
good.
card. and-
Have that video going in
Yes.
the cards.
Yes.
Any other questions? No?
Good job.
Good job, yes, very good job. I think it clarifies a lot of things. The board needed some clarification too, so
We need-
thank you for doing
Oh,
that.
we need to
Need to
vote.
vote.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to do that, but are you done with the?
Yes.
Okay, so, if we could go ahead and have we already made a motion and a second,
Yes.
correct? Cindy, we just need
Yes.
any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Oprisco?
Yes. Now, those of you who want to see a Bears game.
All right, just because I'm the only one.
Really,
who's
really,
great.
really? I'm a Bears fan too. We don't get to win. We're here together.
Thank
See
you.
See you later.
So-
We still have some time, yeah. We still have a little time.
We're good.
Next, we'll move on, then we'll go back to the staff presentations. We have a food service presentation from Mrs. Anderson.
So this is the first time that the board is going to meet Mrs. Teresa Anderson, who is our food service director. She is extremely innovative, she is extremely detailed, and is truly a real team player and a let's get things done and put our students first. So I think that this has been a great fit. She's been with us since February, and she's really done some great things, so go ahead.
Okay, yep. So I'm Teresa Anderson. I have a couple of undergrads and a master's in public health informatics, so I'm actually really excited. I don't want to lead in with that yet because I don't want to promise anything I can't do, but I'm really excited about ways that I can fuse the both of those and maybe do some innovative things to kind of put us on the map in terms of nutrition education and mental health sort of support activities in the cafeteria. So I'm really excited about fusing those two things. I was in Elkhart for 10 years in the food service department there, learned from one of the best. So thankful that the time that I've spent with her. Prior to that, I worked at the health department as a traveling educator, so I've been involved in a school setting for about 15 years now in different capacities. We relocated to Northwest Indiana. My husband took a job here, took a year off to flip a house. That's what I do on the side. And then I joined Portage in February, so I'm so glad to be here. And I know everybody probably is tempted to get up here and brag about their team, but if you can indulge me just a couple of seconds, I want to tell you how excited I am about the folks that I get to work with every day. So amongst us, with the exception of one person, I have the most seniority, February of 19, if that gives you an example of how new our team is. Abby's been with us for a couple of years and has just really been there and carried us and supported us through that transition. When I came in, I've had about a month or so, and we dove into a couple of audits. We had the administrative review and the procurement review, and she was one showing up my door saying, "What can I do to help? What can I do to help?" And I'm so grateful for that. Everyone else came on late May to even a couple of weeks ago, and the sum total of what they are bringing to the department is so exciting. I'm so encouraged, and I'm feeling really good about what we're going to do with the department going forward. So I'm going to resist the temptation to name them all out and tell you all the really cool things about them, but I want you to know that they're there and they're doing things, and we're proud. Okay, I got to get my here. Okay, so these are our free and reduced numbers from last year. We're almost spot on target to what we're doing this year. Now, of course, that kind of ebbs and flows depending on the day, but we have really, Liz has really been working through our applications. I think we've processed almost 800 manually. You know, most of them come through our web service, but she has to put eyes on those, match them up to the student, and push them through. So that's a lot. You know, she's only been here a couple of months, and then we've had, I've got the numbers here, 2,371 kids that have been approved through the direct cert list. And I believe the state of Indiana now, I think they were requiring that we download that list and upload it into our system about 3 times a year. I think now it's 1 time a month. We're pushing that thing through like at least once a week because we're really wanting to get our kids matched up and get those benefits to them if they are needing those. So we will continue to work with this. Our last big push is this week. The rollover expires this week, so we'll have a lot of folks that were still receiving free or reduced meals that will expire and move to paid status if they don't reapply again. Melissa's helped us with an all-call, and the letters have gone out, so numbers may change a little bit, but we're about on target for where we were last year. 1,157,286 meals are what we served last school year. Of those, 332,938 were breakfast, and the rest were lunch. In regards to breakfast, I think that most school districts wrestle with getting their participation numbers up. That's pretty normal. My sort of informal goal now, just kind of throwing something out there, is I would love for us to serve 1 breakfast for every 2 lunches, if we could even, so it's a modest increase, but something that I think will be pretty meaningful. And of course, I mean, it makes sense that you'd want to have a full tummy before you started the school day, but the research definitely demonstrates that school breakfast consumption boosts academic performance, grades test scores, increases concentration, alertness, comprehension, and memory. Classroom behavior improves, absenteeism and tardiness reduces. School breakfast participation is also linked to a lower body mass index, lower probability of being overweight or obese, and improved diet quality. So from August 14th, first day of school, to September 13th, we served 39,183 breakfasts and 102,481 lunches. So you can definitely see that there's some room for improvement there. So then the question is, how do we increase the breakfast participation numbers? We worked quite a bit with grab-and-go breakfast in Elkhart, and you instantly see your numbers just soar. So if there are any schools out there that are interested in doing this with me, I am game. I'd be so excited to try it. National Breakfast Week, we ran from March 4th to March 8th, 2019, also as a way to increase breakfast participation. And 10,044 breakfasts were served that week. 4,290 were paid for by Portage Food Service. We pay for that out of our a la carte fund. Didn't necessarily see, just kind of looking at the numbers before breakfast week and then a couple weeks after, didn't necessarily see a sustained increase in numbers, but it's something that we do for our kids and we'll continue to do that. Okay, a little bit about grab-and-go breakfast. There are some characteristics where grab-and-go breakfasts are likely to be successful, and I would say that this is pretty much spot on with my experience as well. The cafeteria or gym is crowded or not available for breakfast. A large number of students have to wait to eat in a short amount of time. I imagine that's something that almost all the schools wrestle with in some capacity. Buses arrive just before the start of classes. Yep, familiar. What's really important is the teachers and custodial staff are supportive of breakfast and realize its importance to learning. Students, oftentimes in these settings where it's been successful, the students were previously relying on a la carte or convenience foods from outside the school for breakfast. The cafeteria isn't located where students enter the building or hang out, and the breakfast menu can easily offer grab-and-go options, and I got that one covered. We'll be ready for the grab-and-go if anybody wants to take me up on the offer. So my experience, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the different ways that we ran it. So there's cafeteria pickup, where students, I saw this one in elementary mostly, where students would come down to the cafeteria, you run through the line, take the meal, and head on to the classroom. Usually the building administrator assigns a couple of teachers or maybe paraprofessionals to kind of monitor what's going on in the hallway, because you do have a little foot traffic that you may not normally have on any other day, but it works really well. There's also drop-off. So the way we started in my old district is we had all these igloo coolers, and we'd pack them up every morning. Well, the night before, you'd pack them up with your milk, and then the morning of, you'd pack them up with the breakfast. You'd roll, 20, 25 igloo coolers to the classroom. You'd drop them off with a roster. The teachers check off the students that are eating, and then we pick up the coolers when they're done. That one didn't work probably as well, and so we ended up moving away from that to the hallway pickup. But I will mention the deliver and serve. It's not one I have experience with. I think it'd be a little harder to do because you'd move from classroom to classroom, and of course there's a tight timeline. But it's definitely something that some of the districts do and have success with. Hallway pickup is the one that I like the most. And so we usually just put all the food on the cart. You can serve hot food. It works. You load all the food up onto a rolling cart. Doesn't have to be very big. You've probably seen them in the kitchens. And we push out to strategically placed locations in the school. And then the kids know which cart is theirs. So it's definitely something you want to start like at semester break or at the beginning of the school year so you can kind of prep them for it. But they love it. The numbers go up. There's not a rush. They have time in the classroom to eat. I think participation increases a little bit because if you see your peer eating, you're more likely to eat. And so this is sort of similar to what that would look like when we set up. You just kind of stuff everything on there and the kids get the hang of it really well. So let's see here. Oh, I should mention that often the concern is bugs or trash or messiness. It's honestly not a concern at all. I did it for years and it wasn't a problem. Definitely don't want to do cereal. That's not a good idea in the classrooms, but otherwise it works out really well. And then I think I mentioned you have those trash cans strategically placed around in the hallways, and kids know which one is theirs and they throw their trash away, and it's honestly not a problem. Now, for secondary schools, I have a dream. And the dream is that we're allowed to use maybe, especially in the high schools, I think this would be awesome, reimbursable meal vending machines. These things are so cool. They can take cash coin, credit cards, debit cards, but I spoke with a gentleman last week, and the one that I'm most interested in is it ties in with our point of sale software. So a student can go up, type in their ID number, they use a second verification of the birth date, and then the one that I would like to bring in is an offer versus serve machine. So you may or may not know we run offer versus serve here. It means that students at breakfast need to take 3 out of the 4 menued items, and at lunch they only need to take 3 out of the 5 menued components. So what could happen is, like on the one that I'm looking at, there are 25 slots where you can insert choices. So the student can go up, and the first thing they say is, do you want a grain? Because you don't necessarily need to take a grain at breakfast. So do you want a grain? And they plug it in. Yeah, I'll take the, you know, I'm not supposed to say funnel cakes. What are they called? Dutch waffles.
Dutch waffles.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll take the Dutch waffles or something like that. They plug it in. Actually, that's not a good example because that would be warm. Okay, anyways, they choose the grain, they can choose a fruit, they can choose a milk. And then it will drop down a reimbursable meal. So you could pack it up completely and have it like pre-bagged as a whole meal, or you could get the one where they can do the offer versus serve, which I think is great because I'm all about minimizing waste. I want the kids to have it if they want to have it, but if they don't want it, we don't want them to take it. So, the considerations here are, of course, cost. It's not cheap. But what I'm hearing is that it pays for itself in a couple of years, and there is a grant that I would like to look at for the spring. I really wanted to do that this past spring, but there just wasn't time. And folks are using that to bring down the cost. I think it takes about $2,500 to $3,000 off of the cost. So, and then the other issue would be, where would you place it, right? You don't want it to be a distraction or something that takes away from what needs to be happening in the morning. So for iStep and iRead testing weeks, we, food service staff offered breakfast to all students free of charge during the assessments. And we served 7,469 breakfasts that week, and food service paid for 2,607 of those. Okay, lunch. So we've been doing a couple things at lunch, and we're kind of working towards kind of staying where we're at now. We've done some new things, and we're going to kind of stay where we're at until winter break, and then we're going to roll out a revised menu. A la carte, Dawn in our department has completely reworked the a la carte menu to make it all Smart Snack compliant. She's bringing in things that kids are going to see, you know, in the convenience stores or in the grocery store. So we're doing really good with a la carte sales, which is great because it allows us to have that flexibility to do some stuff that we normally wouldn't be able to do with our federal funds. We've menued some new items, some successes, some not so great. So like Boom Boom Chicken was phenomenal. We brought in a pulled pork that everybody was raving about, and we added Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce to that, so that's a popular day. And then we tried a meatloaf, which didn't go so well. So what I love about our team is that we're not afraid to try, and I think that's an important part so that we don't become kind of complacent, and we're doing new things for the kids to keep them attracted. Let's see here. One of the things we've also been working on, and I mean putting in some time on, lots and lots of days, is bringing our menus in alignment with the USDA meal patterns. So you can see here, I just gave you, we're mostly constrained by calories. Sodium is an issue as well, but calories are probably the main thing we're looking at. So we will use a Google sheet. Dawn and I spent a lot of time on this, and we analyze it first in terms of calories, and then we look at the sodium. The great thing is that the current presidential administrative cabinet has rolled back the sodium requirement, so we have a little more room. And I'm understanding that will be that way until 2024, so it gives us some flexibility and also gives manufacturers an opportunity to bring more products in that are in line with what USDA is requiring. Okay.
Well, how about the saturated and trans fat? Because that's included with the sodium in the same sentence. So they rolled that back also.
So there are daily average limits for sodium, saturated, and trans fats, so we look at them differently. They don't allow, actually, I'm not sure that they allow anything on trans. Saturated, I think, is now 10 or less.
Did they roll those back? Sodium, because I don't understand. I just heard they did.
I think
Potatoes and, I mean, I remember reading about it.
that's a good question. I'll have to check into that. I know that they rolled back the sodium. We moved to, we're one of the few districts in the area that moved from fat-free chocolate milk to the 1%. We're hoping that kids are really welcoming that change. And then you no longer have to apply for the whole grain waiver. So it used to be if you wanted to do the 51%, you'd have to apply for the waiver, but you're no longer required to do that. So those are some great things. And I'll definitely look into that. I don't know if that's changed or not. Okay, community outreach, donations. Milk, we donated 38,776 milks. Last year, they go to the food bank and to the Salvation Army. And I think occasionally, if those folks are filled up or are not able to take our donation, we reach out to other people as well. Juice cups, 4,887, and yogurt, 986. And then.
So do students get to take that first in families? Or
I'm sorry?
does our families get access to that before we donate it outside the community?
So our students have access to it in the cafeteria, absolutely. That share table is available
The
for
share
anyone.
table, okay.
And actually, they do, and I had a question about it because we had a student that hadn't purchased breakfast but was ending up in the cafeteria and taking off the share table. Absolutely, that's fine, yes. So we have, it's not a requirement that you're there eating. You're welcome as a student to grab something out of there. Does that answer your question?
So with that shared table or shared food concept, because I'm the one who brought that.
Oh.
A lot of schools in their cafeterias then would ask for donations for refrigerators for that type of food, and then it was accessible to parents when they picked up their kids, so that our community, who taxpayers paid for it, had access to it first, our students.
I see. I wasn't aware of that.
And then it wasn't the shaming that went along with everybody's theirs eye on it, like you said, seeing who's grabbing it. It was after hours, those refrigerators was there was already a staff member there, and they could just take whatever they wanted.
Okay. So that sounds like that was a practice that was in place, and we just maybe need to make sure that that's still happening. That was the original
Yeah, it was a
intent.
whole name of a program. Do you remember it?
I don't remember the name of the program, but it probably wasn't implemented.
Well, it was implemented.
It was implemented
It
because
was?
at Central, we
Yes.
did have that.
Did, okay.
Yes.
We did. Actually, Teresa, you may recall, I can only think of a couple that I've been in, where they have some of the fridges in the actual dining area for kids. And I know they utilize those during the day and all that, but then that was also where they would rotate those things in for families after hours.
Oh.
Yeah, so that they're not having to travel through the actual kitchen, they're just in the dining area of the cafeteria. They can go right in and get the items that they needed. And we kind of, at one point, our kitchen crew would bag several items together. So, when you came in, there's 10 milks in a bag. So you could take as many bags as you needed, but we kind of tried to prepackage some things, 5 apples.
Now, I have seen them in high school, in the dining area.
Yes.
I have seen them in
You've
high
seen
school.
that happen?
Mhm. In the high school.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
refrigerators with food in them.
So it was a whole program, and it was actually originated from an individual who wanted to cut waste. And it started with, like, let's just say the Marriott hotels, the big hotel chains, of donating the little shampoos and those type of things that weren't used. And then it ended up being toilet paper, a whole big thing. So he wanted to cut waste in public school, food waste. And I don't mean cut it, but I mean make sure that it didn't go into the garbage, it went back to the community who paid
Right,
for that.
right.
Whether or not it's free or reduced, I as a taxpayer still pay for that out of the federal government. And then the whole concept of it was even, food is brought into trays. And I forgot what the government guidelines was, and we even had Mr. Elwood look into it because the health department, Porter County Health Department, said we could not donate food if it was cut into or opened with the tray. And the federal government even had guidelines, and they also had, I forgot what it was called, but some kind of a lawsuit or report thing that said, yes, you can, and I'm not mistaken, and it's somewhere around this, if a third of it's left, and I'm not for sure the numbers, yes, it can be donated. And so that was part of it, and then also there's a whole different component to it, that the students studied it. It was all the way from K to 12, there was curriculum in it, of donating the food, how much carbon imprint we saved. You weighed it, all the food that was saved, and it was there was all curriculum and from all the way up to 12th grade on how this worked and how, I mean, it's a huge, great concept, and I don't know what happened to it, obviously. It's something that just got way to the, I don't know what happened to it, but it was good, remember?
I do remember, yeah.
Yes. Were you on the board, Wilma, when we did that?
Yes.
Yes, she was.
So, it's been,
It's been 2 years at least.
Couple years.
yeah.
Okay.
So if we could look at that?
Sure.
And I don't know the name of it.
I don't remember
Can we look it up,
either.
Cindy, when we approved it? Then she can get it to you.
Sure. Have you seen the food in the high school cafeteria? Is it this school year or last school year?
It was at the end of last school year.
At end of last school?
Yes. The refrigerators with food in it, yes.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So this summer, 31,609 meals or snacks were served through our summer meals program. So some of the focuses for the rest of this school year, Amanda and I have already been talking a little bit. We're looking at expanding our outreach in summer. Special dietary requests, we've implemented some protocols and procedures that weren't there before, and I'm excited about those. Want to spend some more time on that to further develop that and get a real good standardized program in place that, you know, we should be doing the same thing in regards to handling those dietary requests in every kitchen. Operational standardization, so what I'm trying to do is run the same menu instead of like each side of the high school kind of doing their own thing, or maybe each of the middle schools doing their own thing. We're running them the same across the grade level. Doing pretty good with that so far. I'm excited about that. I think that will improve our costing and our efficiency. Testing and trends. Excited to get some food taste testing going on. Probably won't be till the spring, but we'll definitely be looking at that. And I try to get to as many of the food shows as possible to stay on trend with what's happening. Renovation, the high school renovation is due. We're gonna get that hopefully done next summer. Have already started the process of sort of picking up where that was left off with. And actually, I'm hoping to meet with a gentleman tomorrow. He's going to come in and do some work with us. Equipment, we've really been working to make sure that all the equipment is functional. I think that's an important part of job satisfaction for those ladies that are out there. And so there was quite a bit to be done, I'll be honest with you. It's been a little more costly than I expected, but it's great because we're getting things done. There are some rather expensive pieces of equipment that need to probably be replaced, so those are things that we'll be looking at after the winter as well. And then we are long overdue for a point-of-sale software upgrade. Dave and his team have been helping us look at some of the options. And so what's probably going to happen is we'll try to select one by winter, and then come January, he had suggested running those at the same time. I'm going to tell you, I don't exactly understand all the technical aspects behind it, but kind of get them communicating with each other, and then we'll be ready to go live with the new point-of-sale software come next fall.
Rollout plan.
Yes. Bids, what'd you say? Bids? Put it out to bid?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
We're not just gonna pick one because we
Yes.
like them?
Yes.
You mean for the point-of-sale software?
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. We are all about procurement in that
Okay,
department.
because I didn't hear that. You said we're gonna
Yeah.
try one or
Yeah.
two, and somebody's been looking at it, and no.
Yes, no.
So is that something, I guess, and the attorney's not here, is that something that comes out of the food service budget?
The purchase of the software?
Yes. Okay, so with that being said, then we have to ask Mr. Elwood, I would assume that this board would have to approve that contract in those bids.
Yes, and also Teresa has been working with Attorney Stidham on the procurement and different things, so we'll make sure all of that is taken care of, the bids, all of it, and brought before the board. No movement.
We procure everything in our department. Whether it's through the 3-quote or we're running it through a micro purchase, which requires you to rotate between vendors, everything is procured. I was, as part of the procurement review that we had in April, I was sent to procurement school.
Good.
And so that was enlightening, and we're really on board with that. So do you have any questions for me?
Great.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your enthusiasm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I meant to show you this, I'm sorry. This was something that we brought in the elementary schools, the Jump Start Kit. We were really excited about this. You could get it in different cereal varieties. The kids were less excited about it, so we ended up going back to cereal and toast, but I just kind of wanted to give you an example of some of the things that we're trying.
Now, what I have seen, and we might have a volunteer, Mr. Masiko, are you volunteering to have your school do the grab-and-go breakfast?
We'll try anything.
Yeah, there you go, see?
I think we have a pretty good amount of kids that eat breakfast, though.
They
Like,
grab and
I was
go?
looking at your list, our buses are here plenty early. We have kids that come from the, Boys and Girls Club, and it seems like the kids that get dropped off at 8:20 eat breakfast, and some of them I even say, you go to breakfast? No, ate it this morning, but we would give it a try. I mean, especially since it helps achievement and helps kids focus and learn better, definitely.
So what we've seen, if, you look at the national perspective on this, is that, and I don't know, have you seen that, like you said, that you bring these carts and they're in the hallway, and especially the elementary, they love just sitting down and eating in the hallway. So is that what you see too? And they even say the middle and the high schoolers, they just find it a area that they like just to sit and eat there,
So.
as opposed to the classroom or the cafeteria.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. So my
Okay.
experience is that they take it to the classroom.
They take it to the classroom.
And they have more time, morning announcements are on, they can take their time, and then they just know to get up without supervision. They get the hang of it really quickly and just throw their trash away. But absolutely, we could make spaces in the classroom as well, but my experience is just with the meeting in the classroom.
It was very interesting when Teresa first came on board and was going around to our schools and seeing where, in particular at the high school, we had kids during lunchtime sitting on the floor, and she's like, do we need more tables? And nope, they just really
Kids
like
like
to
it.
be there.
Flexible
So,
seating.
yeah, I think that it's an opportunity to explore and be able to congregate in an interesting way.
How far are we in terms of percentages of families that, whether it's students who have free and reduced lunch, to be able to offer meals at no cost?
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit when I came on. I would like to, there was just a lot, I'll be honest with you. There was a lot going on when I came on, just with the turnover and the audits and stuff, but that's definitely something that I want to look at for next school year. The issue that I ran into, and I actually talked to somebody at IDOE about this extensively, is that we really only have 2 schools where it makes perfect sense in terms of the numbers. And otherwise, we're kind of on the line, and her experience was, and she mentioned a district where they had moved to the universal, free for all, and it ended up not making sense financially, but the issue they had is once you offer that, it's kind of hard to roll back.
Right.
And so, if I remember correctly, the deficit cannot be paid for by federal funds. So what was happening then is the district was needing to pick up the difference, and it was creating kind of a pickle for that district. So, but there were 2 schools, and like in Elkhart, where I'm from, we would only run like universal, the free breakfast, like the CEP, at the schools where the numbers made sense, for lack of a better word. I don't know if that's something you're interested in. It just kind of depends on where you want to go with it, but there were 2 schools where.
So-
Excuse me, I would rather, this is just my personal opinion, offer it to the 2 schools. I would rather have some than none at all.
Sure.
And that's just my personal experience.
Sure.
So with that being said, with 2 schools meeting the threshold, the federal government threshold, can you do that just in a school, or does it have to be district-wide?
You can do it just in a school. And there's not there's not a yes or no threshold per se. They just kind of give you a guideline of where you could potentially run into some issues with funding it, but they let you make the decision on your own, so.
I don't know, I don't, I like the idea of singling out 2 schools, because they'll gain a reputation from, you know, how kids are, that, well, that's the poor schools. And, I mean, I think you
I'd
gotta
rather
either
have
be
a child-
district-wide or,
But I'd rather have a child fed
Yes.
but I think all
a
kids.
good meal
I think
in the
all kids who
morning.
need to be, who can't afford to purchase their breakfast or lunch are being identified. I mean, there's probably some that still haven't, but you want to identify them. We're in a middle-class community. You know, it's not the majority of us can't afford to have our kids. Like myself, I would never expect not to pay for my child's lunch. I wouldn't want it for free. I'd rather have that money go into the classroom. I mean, that's just my opinion. And I think singling out 2 schools puts a connotation on those 2 schools that's different from the other schools.
And sometimes it's not just the fact that the families cannot afford it, it's the families are so busy, people run out of milk, cereal, whatever the case may be. And I respect how you feel, but I really feel that those 2 schools who have families that have been identified as meeting those guidelines of free and reduced should be able to have those meals at no cost.
I understand both perspectives.
And if I run out
Yes.
of milk or food for breakfast, my kids have money on their lunch account. They could purchase their own.
Right,
I paid for it if I ran out.
right.
Right.
Yeah,
but
I
then-
don't expect another taxpayer
And
to
if they don't
pay
have
for
money in their
that.
account, they still can get it, and then you gotta
You gotta pay it anyway.
pay it later.
Some families don't have that
Yeah,
luxury,
some don't, some don't.
especially when you have
Have
3, 4, 5 children.
But then they should apply for the free and reduced
Then they get
lunch.
free and
Right.
lunch.
Right.
I
That's
think
what it's
one
there
thing
for.
that's important to capitalize in this
Depends on
discussion
between
is
them.
because there's no requirement to purchase or go through the line at all, that maximizing students' accessibility to share tables, regardless of purchasing a meal or otherwise, we see what those donation numbers
Yeah.
are sending out to the community.
Yeah.
And so making sure that we're also being very clear about the ability to access the share tables without going through that line and using your PIN is a priority.
Or having families come in after, so they
Or-
do
right.
have milk
Yes.
in the morning.
Yes.
If they're not gonna have time to go to the store or if
Yeah,
they
because the good
just
thing is that's an
need
immediate,
it.
that meets an immediate need for all 11
Mm-hmm.
schools, regardless of if they qualify, don't qualify, you know, getting that information out, and maybe that be the first step in, you know, making sure that we get that up and running, and how parents can come in after hours, and how we make sure that our instructional support staff, who is, you know, social emotional learning is their first primary focus, that they're attentive to, hey, go to the share table, you're still hungry, you know, looking at what kids unpack, you know, the child who brings out a moldy piece of bread, that's all they had, you know. So I think that there's some short-term wins with what's in place and opportunities, regardless of which school would qualify or
Yeah, and maybe
otherwise.
that's just more communication of what's available.
So what does that look like then? So it's just there, and then after school, a parent comes to pick up or drops by, and they are given access by the front office just to head on down to the cafeteria?
It's all federally there's guidelines for this. It's
I
a
see.
huge program.
We'll pull
yeah,
it
It's,
from
it's
board docs.
already there. You don't have to create anything, you don't have to develop anything, you don't have to, you might have to have a scaled away food and a refrigerator and a shared table. And that's it. Everything else is provided. It's already set up so that this works. It works for kids and it works for families. And we were doing it. So, and we might still be doing it. Are you still doing it, Mr. Masico?
We have a refrigerator and a share table.
So we are doing it.
Certain
Yeah.
spots.
Yeah.
And see, that's interesting because it's my understanding that the ladies are pulling that pretty quickly and crating it up because our driver was coming around twice a week to pick that up. So I'd just be curious. We'll get it worked out.
Ours doesn't extend to families, but it's, if you're eating something, you can put it in the share refrigerator on the
There you
table.
go.
Okay.
And then as the day goes on, kids that are hungry or didn't eat enough or need more, they can
Okay,
go get it.
that's different.
So I don't know if it extends past that.
And so the challenge
So it can extend.
The
Yeah,
challenge-
it's a good thing
Yes.
to-
could be about a share table is that some children that, let's say, have diabetes or have other health issues, that they're not being monitored to, when they go up to get an extra item.
You know, you made a point that I didn't even think about. I appreciate you
Mm-hmm.
bringing that up, because if they're having access, I mean, a parent coming in is going to be different because they're assuming the responsibility for that, but that would definitely be something that we'd need to look at.
This program will answer every question you
Okay,
have.
all right.
And I do have one more
Yes.
question for you, and it may be a combination of both ladies. Free or reduced lunch applications for our students, how are they trending? I know you said that we seem to be about the same place, but I know it's one thing to apply and it's one thing to apply, to be eligible. And it's another thing to, and you probably could speak to this too,
Well, it affects our Title I.
I know, so yeah, so how are we trending last year to this year? Because I know it's sometimes people just don't apply for the resources and they're definitely eligible for them. So,
I'm always looking at the numbers from a year in arrears.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't.
the free or reduced lunch applications, you said that we had about 2,371 students?
Those are direct certs. And
Direct certs. See,
so it's
here we
the
go.
direct cert,
Yes.
this is too much information, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm going too long, so forgive me.
That's
but
okay.
It's the direct cert numbers that determine whether or not, so those are the numbers that they take into account for those free meal universal programs.
Yes.
And so sometimes it's deceiving because you look at the free and reduced rates and you automatically think, oh, we're this high, we qualify, but it's actually those direct certs. But the direct cert children, they come over automatically.
Okay.
So just because we're putting this out to the community, what direct certification means is that I can apply for free and reduced. I automatically get approved. How many applicants are audited? Out of how many are audited? There's very, very limited that are audited. Those are the ones that she was working on since February. Do you know what those numbers are? How many, is it 50 applicants? And it's not even that, so 150 applicants and one it is audited out of them.
I think it's 3%, if I remember correctly. We're getting ready to go into verification
So
now.
it's
Verification
very,
low.
very limited,
Very
so
low.
it's really, really
Okay.
available. Let's just put it that way. It's available. And I know your numbers for Title I depend upon that, but
Right.
there are some, I'm just gonna be honest, that are probably getting free and reduced lunch who don't need it because of the direct certification.
Well, then I know there are people that aren't applying because of all the other barriers, like language barriers and undocumented, some other things get in the way of that too.
Well, it's
The
in
direct,
Spanish.
the direct certification list is those families receiving SNAP, TANF,
Yeah.
Medicaid, or Medicaid reduced, and we just take them, the
Gotcha.
state for their word on that. Those other almost 800 odd applications, those are gonna be income-based, those are the ones that we're processing.
Okay, gotcha, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Teresa.
great job. Okay, next we're gonna move on to the Future Ready presentation. Mr. Masico.
So, I'm Phil Masico. This is my 5th year starting here at South Haven. It's a great place to be. We have great teachers here. Mr. DePasquale's been here a lot lately. And we're going to just present on our Future Ready library renovation, things you see, things that we went through, the process, those kind of things. So the backstory. So a little over a year ago, we had what seemed to be a really good start to the school year. And we had an emergency, and we had to go to the high school. We were displaced to the high school for about 15 days. And when we came back, this is what our library looked like. So it was basically empty, except for a few things that were removed shortly after. And one of the things that you don't realize that, you don't realize until you lose it, our library is not only centrally located in the school, but it is a place where every student came multiple times a week. Every adult came multiple times a week. It was a center stone to our teaching kids the love of reading, to our literacy program, to everything. And so it was hard. We had a lot of outreach from all the schools across the district. They sent us books, they sent us supplies, they sent us carts. The community members were awesome. They showed up and wanted to support us. And we created a makeshift library in a classroom, but it just wasn't the same. It was difficult. It was tough for us. The good thing is we got a clean canvas. It's in the ability to create, with your guys' support, what you see here today. So some of the process, I guess, what happened is 2 committees were formed. We formed one committee here at South Haven. And so we had me, our IT person, a group of teachers, the librarian, and we did some research and talked about, okay, what do we want this to look like? What's the vision? How do we want to change things to make it future ready? But you don't know what you don't know. And so luckily, we also had a district level team with Mr. DePasquale and people that knew the upgrades in technology. People had took visits to other schools that had furniture that was flexible and good for kids. We had people that just were in the know or had experience and talked to others that were in the know. And we even brought, I think Dr. Stevens brought somebody from one of the furniture stores to the table that had renovated a few libraries already to give us options and ideas. And so that was going on. And some of the things that we wanted to focus on is flexible furniture. So I think our teachers do an amazing job at using their classroom to create different learning environments. Whether it's whole group instruction, individual practice, working with a partner, group collaboration, but to have the furniture to be able to do this is awesome. Active learning spaces. So as you guys know, traditional libraries, and ours probably before this happened, was full of rows and books, and you come in and you were supposed to be silent and you got a book and either somebody read to you or you found a space and read to yourself. But we wanted something active. We want to see kids working all over the place or together, whatever it be. We wanted interactive technology. Mr. DePasquale will talk about that more, but you'll see monitors, iMacs over there. There's a lot of upgrades in technology. We wanted access to physical books. We think it's still important for kids to hold a tangible book and read, but also we think it's important because we're moving in the future that they have ebooks. And one of the cool things is we put in another hotspot was put in there, and you can see that blue container over there is iPads. And so kids could come in, they could check out a book, or they can get an iPad and they can get an ebook, and they can go anywhere they want within the library. And then also we wanted a makerspace compatibility. As our makerspace becomes more in demand, as the kids see what there's available, as the staff sees what's available, and they want to be in there more, we wanted another place for the overflow so kids could come in here and create the same makerspace opportunity. So some of the things that we discussed and that we wanted, this is little, but it was big. We took a field trip to the high school and saw their renovation, and we liked the black ceiling. We liked the contrast, and we were also looking for something visually appealing that kids want to be in here and adults want to be in here. And we were a little bit worried because it's not as high as the ceilings in the high school, but I think it came out great. We wanted the high efficiency LED lighting, which has been awesome. A large circulation desk. So basically we wanted a desk that had plenty of workspace in the center of the whole area, and we wanted that to be the only permanent thing attached to the ground. We wanted everything else to be mobile and to be moved. And basically that's exactly what happened. Multiple monitors, as you can see around the room. They have touch screen, they're movable. Mr. DePasquale will show you what that one can do. But basically we wanted kids from kindergarten that are this tall to fifth graders to adults to be able to access everything that you see. High-powered computers, which are the 4 iMacs over there. We do video announcements, and so my vision in the future is they record them, and then they go sit over there and the kids actually edit them and send them out. It's like they take that into their own hands, which I think is pretty cool. Again, access of iPads, which are in the blue. The ability to go outside. This isn't a big thing, but it was a big thing. we didn't have a door cut into the courtyard. And even though our teachers used it because it's down there, we didn't use it enough. And it's beautiful in the fall, and it's beautiful in the spring, and I don't know if you guys were able to go out there when you got here. It looks amazing. And so basically we doubled the size of our library, and I just see kids like going out there with iPads, working, reading by themselves, collaborating, discussing stuff, and I just think it's going to be used a whole lot more. That wasn't an easy process. We had to reroute some electrical and reroute some water lines and stuff, but I think it's going to be well worth it. I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody out there. Again, the makerspace style. We have a 3D printer over there. One of the presentations, yours, you talked about the kids that went to the 4th grade camp class. I was in a class last week where one of the girls that was in that class had her 5th grade classes together, showing them Tinkercad, showing them Tinkercad and how she was creating a turtle. And they didn't get to the print part yet, but she was doing a really good job. And I just thought it was kind of cool. One little thing that she was creating a turtle, and she created a ball, and she stuck it in where the eye is, but you can hit a button and make it concave so it goes in instead of out. It was just really wild. It's awesome. It's like, it's the future. We are in the future. We have the VR kits. I almost walked into Ms. Finley when you came in. I was on a field trip looking at the mountains. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
But those are really cool. You know, you show the kids, not all kids get to take those experiences and go to those places. And it's different when you see it in a flat page in a book or even on a screen. When you put it in there and you can turn around and you're there. I mean, you're really there. It creates a quality conversation, and kids the kids get into that. We also... It gave us a chance. We had some books that were antiquated, to be quite honest. We needed to get rid of them, but it's hard to pitch stuff. So it allows us to get rid of a lot of books that weren't necessary and then rebuild our library with high interest, good, modern day books that our kids want to read. And then the last thing is the ability to use the media center as one space. And Mr. DePasquale might show you this. Like all of the monitors are connected, so you can actually take one class and break them up into different areas, and they can all watch the same thing. Or you can bring, say, a whole grade level in here and put them in different areas, and they can be totally doing way different things, which is really cool. And I don't even know that our teachers know that because we're opening officially tomorrow, so we're learning as we're going. So hopefully that excites you guys.
So one of the things that we've been talking about through several years is about future ready, and then also looking at future ready libraries. So obviously Leads Beyond the library participates in setting the school district's vision and strategic plan for digital learning and fosters a culture of collaboration and innovation to empower teachers and learners. So the after, and I'll be fairly brief because with Mr. Masico's enthusiasm, he covered a lot of what I was going to talk about, and that's okay. That's a good thing. I'm so excited for him and his teachers that this is the legacy that they're going to have as we move on. So we're looking at that future ready, the gears. There's 7 gears, and those 7 gears apply not only to future ready as a whole, but future ready in the library. So we're looking at the robust infrastructure, 2 access points in the room. We're looking at the budgeting and working with Nick Gron and the finance department to look at that. Collaborative learning, collaborative is very important for our students, the use of space and time, and all those things that work inside that gear. So the first thing is creativity with the technology. We want students to, for higher levels of DOK and learning, we want them to be creative. Analyzation and creativity really empowers students as creators and facilitates learners to become increasingly self-directed as they create digital products of their learning that engage them in critical thinking, collaboration, and authentic real-world problem solving. So the iMacs over there have a lot of creativity to them because of the power of them. They possess a lot of products in there like iMovie where they can do some high-end editing, and the students have a larger screen where an iPad is very useful for day-to-day function, and in the classroom having a space where they can get to a larger screen and do some of those things. Collaboration. That's an example of one set of table of 5s, 5 right there. So it's 3 smaller tables that come together and seat 6 all around. It's all whiteboard intentional. We wanted whiteboard so that students can sit down, take out their dry erase markers and start drawing down ideas, sharing and collaborating, talking about their ideas. Even back there in the flexible seating for the reading areas, those little white rounds are actually white tables also. We even went on a little bit of a risk and excited. The iMac table is whiteboard. So the students can be working on a project together, thinking through ideas of putting together their video and be writing their ideas down right next to the computer and have that ability to them. So we're really excited about that. We still wanted that stacks idea of regards to having availability for students to really go and physically check out a book. And so making sure that they inspire the reading, because obviously reading is such an important, critical part of what we do with our students. You know, we just adopted a new curriculum in regards to reading, and we want to support that in both. We want to do it in tangible book item, but also in ebooks and the digital learning that we have with the digital components of what we did. Socialization and quiet time. We want this space to be active and at times noisy, but we want also times where students can come in here and sit on a comfortable seating and sit by themselves or sit in a small group and have that time to share, reflect, and have that opportunity just to have a very flexible learning space. The digital access to online learning. So we do have 4, and please forgive me, I'm going to step away from the microphone for just a moment. So there are those 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Matt's going to do me a favor and kind of roll that out a little bit, and I apologize to our streamers. They'll probably get cut off from the vision of seeing this. But the neat thing about this is this addresses our very tallest students, but then also comes all the way down to, as I talk, this will all come all the way down to that literally a preschooler or a person on their hands and knees can actually come up and they could sit around and be working at the TV. What makes it even neater is those students can ultimately, if this only went faster. What makes me really excited is this actually completely folds flat as a table. And these are touch screens, so students can actually use this as a work table, writing ideas, drawing ideas, those type of things. I mean, truly flat table. So we've already said, oops, that gets a little high, so we're already considering what we're going to do for our kindergartners in regards to schools, step schools. But that really gives them that ability to have that flexibility. And there's 2 of those. And the great thing about it, while they're primarily purposed for the media center, these can be unplugged and rolled into any classroom because we wanted that flexible space. And that, raise that back up. And as Mr. Masico said, all of these monitors here are both Chrome capable, so they're Android. They also have a Windows 10 PC built into them. So, and then it also has an Apple TV hooked up to them that we can use Apple products. So the flexibility of being agnostic to OSs, that kind of stuff. So a teacher can be doing a presentation while another student literally can be right over here. And they could actually be jotting their ideas down by finger drawing with a pen, and that's all flexible within that space. So it's all sharing it or it's all individualized. So we can use this as one 60-seat center for professional development, learning like that even within our staff. And at the same time, we could have 4 different classrooms in the room. The neat thing also is, if I bring this back up to making sure that we have, we also have the ability that they can actually take the actual stuff themselves and actually able to draw on a picture. So you'll see that there's files they can draw on, pull all that kind of stuff. So we're really excited about it and what that makes, what's available to the students. And we're going to try to delete this. I may have to, just give me a second to bring it back. But this is the flexibility that's in this for the students themselves. So this will take a moment and it'll come right back to that presentation that we just had up there. We also have a DVD player that's set up, that's hooked up to the whole system. So they can still play good old-fashioned DVDs if needed. Blu-ray, actually it's a Blu-ray player also. So they can literally be watching a Blu-ray on one, PowerPoint presentation on another, while writing on a whiteboard, while running a Windows PC on the other. So it really creates that flexibility. We still wanted to have good old-fashioned whiteboards in the room, because sometimes just taking out a pen and jotting down ideas. So with that whole concept, we wanted to do something a little bit cooler than just an old-fashioned whiteboard. These are floating whiteboards, so they're actually just behind, there's actually the bare wall behind it. So it gives it that more modern, sleek look. And so we want to make sure that happens. Mr. Masico said, we're moving our VR kits throughout the district, not just at South Haven, into the media center. And the reason why, we had a long discussion with our media clerks and our media specialists and said, you know what, let's try to tie in the curriculum really powerfully with the media center, kind of go around and talk to our teachers and say, hey, what are the big topics that we're working on? Or when Hurricane Dorian happens and say, hey, students are probably curious about that. Having our media clerks and our media specialists pull up a VR on hurricanes, and then just announcing to the teachers, hey, we have VR sitting in the media center where you can come down and do a 5-minute or 10-minute thing on hurricanes, so the kids have a better understanding of hurricanes and their impact, and the teachers don't feel like they're trying to always come up with something new. So, really important. Access to the outdoors, as you said, I'm so excited about that, the green space. And as a person who's really always worried about security, what makes me excited about this green space is it's secured. There's no public access to that space. It's not from a playground, it's not from a busy parking lot, which means that a teacher can feel comfortably going out there and not have to worry about whether somebody's driving into a parking lot or walking the grounds. And so really excited about it, and what they've done to that space is just incredible in regards to the benches, the flowers, and all those type of things. And then, future-ready libraries provide flexible spaces that promote inquiry, creativity, collaboration, and community. We want to have that flexibility, 1 class or 4 classes, and be able to provide that to our students and to our teachers so that they can be creative and they can take risks. And the other nice thing is they still have their classroom, that functional space, but they can pre-set up things over here and bring 2 classes over to do those type of things. And then just because tomorrow is launch with the students, we kind of grabbed some students and said, okay, what is this vision? What is this going to look like? Because we were literally still doing touch-ups and all that kind of stuff just a matter of a couple days ago.
Nice.
What is that going to look like? And just really excited. And just on a side note, before Mr. Masico wraps up, I just am so grateful in regards to the people I got to work with on this project. It have literally stripped the walls down, bare floors. The IT department has been incredible. Those guys have been just laborious in their tasks and doing all those things. Working with Dr. Stevens and Dr. Allen in regards to giving us creative freedom. And I know that Mr. Masico is going to mention the same thing and saying, okay, guys, here you go, make it happen, and allowing those people to have that freedom and creativity, except for 1 day of 2 laborers from the furniture company. This was all done by employees of Portage Township Schools.
Amazing.
The painting, the boiler work, the grid for the ceiling tiles, the IT work, the electrical. The flooring was done by a contractor also, but everything else was done. Phil Masico and I and a couple guys.
They didn't do that on their own. I put up a lot of those shelves.
No, we built those shelves and that circulation desk, and it was fun. We spent the whole day doing it, and just to be able to get our hands on that and do it and get it done was really exciting. And the teachers have been awesome here, and I want to thank you guys because you've been so patient, but at the same time encouraging. Every time you're peeking your heads and like, yep, it's getting a little better, it's getting a little cooler, here it goes. And so just their encouragement, so we appreciate it, and just everybody that got involved, the maintenance department in regards to anytime we needed something else added or fixed or done, they came out here. We needed a couple extra electrical outlets, so they dropped those electrical outlets for us for those type of things.
Amazing.
So just in conclusion, just to mirror what Mr. DePasquale said, I want to thank everybody from the beginning of middle last year who supported us in any way, who helped in the planning, who provided guidance, the leadership of Dr. Alanez, the school board allowing us to do this. Again, it was difficult, but I am so happy and so excited to see what this school year brings in this place, in there, and everything it has to offer. And really, it's the goal for, instead of, as the rest of the elementaries look at building future-ready libraries, instead of going to other districts, that they come here and see what we have in our own district and what we can offer and what we're doing with our kids and the needs that we're filling and the ability we have to help them learn. So it's been awesome. So thank you very much. Thank you.
If I could just add one thing, the plan as we move forward
If you
is-
don't mind, if you come up and just identify so the community, if anybody's watching you on YouTube, they can hear you and know
Sure.
who's speaking.
Dr.
Stevens.
Dr. Stevens, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you.
The future as we move forward is just what Phil just mentioned, is to have some meetings here with our administrators so that it builds internal energy, and those other, this was kind of thrust on Phil. He probably wouldn't have chosen to do this if he could avoid it, but once it was put into his lap, he adapted well, and his school has really taken to it. So what we want to do is build excitement across our whole district for future-ready libraries, and have our administrators and some of their key people come here, see the possibilities, and then also as it grows with, because right now it's kind of a blank slate, we're going to see more student input in terms of what the building, what the room looks like, and so we're looking forward to having it become South Haven's library, but then sharing it across Portage District. So that's just kind of the future as we move forward. We'll have some, I'd like to, we've talked about having an administrative meeting here, having them host us so that all of our administrators can come see this and see what the future holds for Portage, and then see how it fits in each one of their buildings. So I just wanted to make sure that this is not a one and done scenario. This is something that Dr. Allen and I have talked about moving forward as we would like to model our whole corporation after future-ready ideas.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Very, very good.
It just
Yeah,
feels
very-
good in here, doesn't it?
Yeah, the students, the
Yep.
parents, and you've had an open house for the parents, or you're
Not
with
yet,
your.
we're going to.
Yes, I figured.
Yeah,
Right.
so we're gonna have, our PTO is
Mhm.
very excited to have an open house. We're looking at having the book fair at that time, so we're trying to work out some details, but yeah, I cannot wait until we get to open up to the community and they get to see what was built, so, thank you.
So a couple questions. The courtyard, is that a four-season courtyard for studying, including winter?
No, I don't think
So
so.
if we could look at that, I know that Dr. Alanez and Wilma and I, when we were out of school, they did the winter. So they planted certain plants and they did certain things, and they allowed kids to go out there and design with snow and all kinds of other things, so that it was a four-season learning outside environment. So if we could look at that, you
Dr.
know.
Stevens has the literature from
Okay.
one of the school districts that we
Yes.
visited, that specific plants that they planted
Mm-hmm.
and the curriculum that they built, and they gave it to us
Yes.
without any hesitation to be editable and make it our own.
And they even had
That'd be great.
furniture out there that the kids, you know,
Yes.
could
Yeah.
bundle, you know, still bundle up if they wanted to read a book outside, you know, weather depending, of
Right.
course, but they were more than welcome to go out there, so.
They also did gardening, they did, you know, all of
Yes.
those things, flower gardens, vegetable gardens, you know, depending on what's going on in the season, studying different flowering plants throughout each of the seasons, and
Yeah,
And the
that would be
classrooms would go
awesome.
and
I mean,
study
even,
it,
you know, in
yeah.
the winter, the light, you just sometimes need to get out there. so
Well,
that'd be-
sometimes they
that'd be
just
great.
even measured the snow, or they had a thing out there to measure the rain, or,
Mhm.
you know, just accumulation or melting, you know, just all those things that at this age group, they're just awed by. So, and then, I don't know if you have the answer, if not, I understand, but I do know that insurance was involved in this, and what was our cost for this
I will get that directly to you.
without, you know, how much did insurance cover,
Yes.
and what should it cost the district?
Okay.
Well, thank you, exciting.
Thank you.
So we'll get to see this in the peach jar now. Next, we're gonna move on to, does anybody wanna take a 5-minute break? I mean, we've been here for over 2 hours. You wanna just keep going? I know, but,
Shouldn't take that long.
They're the last one, right?
yeah. It will be.
Okay,
Okay.
Presentation.
So relationships engagement, Mrs. Michelle Denfeld and.
And take as much time as you need.
No, seriously,
Well, I
please.
I don't plan on spending a ton of time, but I just wanted to explain some things. I'm Michelle Dunfeld. I'm a 4th grade teacher. This is my 2nd year here at South Haven, and I'm so happy to be part of this team.
And we're happy to have her. This is a good teacher.
Thank you. But I just wanted to share a few things on what I do and what our school does for building relationships and student engagement in the classroom and throughout the school. So we want to make sure that we are doing stuff based on the high-quality professional development. So this presentation is focusing on our August and September focus. So August focus was building relationships, and September's was student engagement. And this is all research-based, backed by Morzano.
And just to add, I know August is, the focus is building relationships, but I feel in all buildings, especially this one, that's a focus of ours throughout the year. I mean, it's essential for our kids to be connected and feel supported, so it's huge for us.
All right, so I'm going to start off with building relationships. So something that I do every single day before the kids enter the room and before they exit the room at the end of the day is a classroom greeting. So I do a hug, handshake, high five, or fist bump. And so there's a couple of reasons why I do this. Last year, me and a couple of other teachers on my team, we started doing this, and it actually got shared through quite a bit of the teachers in the school. But I mainly did it just because to have that positive interaction before a day starts. And also that incorporation of some sort of physical touch with a student, because there are students that come in our classroom that don't get that at home. And so having some part of physical touch, and it's a positive interaction, even if they had a horrible day the day before, new day, fresh start, and they get to have that before they come into the classroom, and then again before they go home, because some of them sometimes don't even want to go home. So they get to choose. So a lot of them, surprisingly, choose hug. I guess I shouldn't say surprisingly for fourth grade, but choose hug. But there's some that don't like the hugging aspect, so they have those other options of handshakes, high fives, or fist bumps that are less intimate, I guess. Then at the school?
Yeah, so one of the things is just greeting, and I said our PTO is awesome. One of the things they did the night before school started, we had kids, they came out here, and they just wrote a bunch of welcoming things, and it was so awesome. I think I've been through 23 first days as an educator, and it was so neat to see the kids walking up and, you know, have a great year and encouragement. They really all stopped, well, the staff, the adults stopped to read it and felt good about the start to the school year. So that was really neat.
And then starting with informal conferences as well, something that's backed by Morzano. And this can be based off of good and bad reactions to things. A lot of times I pull kids into the hallway just to make sure they're okay if I see they're getting frustrated or whatnot, but also just to make sure, hey, what happened last night? I heard you had a football game, and how are you doing? So I want to make sure that those informal conferences are going on and making sure that I'm connecting with those students and making sure they know I care.
And I would say throughout, it's pretty deep throughout the halls, especially during arrival, but you'll see staff members, the student doesn't have to be in your class or in your grade level, they could be anywhere. They'll stop and say, hey, how are you doing? You know, you look sad, or you look happy, or I see you have a baseball shirt on. Do you like the Cubs? You know, we always do that, Sox, Cubs things everywhere. So yeah, that happens all the time. So.
And then attending after-school functions. So this is something that I pride myself in from last year, that there are several after-school functions that I attended of my students in particular. The picture on the right is me attending the spelling bee for the fourth grade Porter County spelling bee with one of my students who made it into the finalists, and out of 27, she ranked 6th. And so I was really impressed with that, and I was really proud of her. This was right after she was crying because she didn't get first place, but I was still very proud of her, and she was so happy and excited that I actually showed up. So attending school functions, I've gone to basketball games, I've gone to soccer games, so it's one of those things showing those kids that you're willing to see them outside of school, support them outside of school, and then also with the school, this was from back to school night.
Yeah, back to school night or one of our Title I involvement nights, I can't remember. Most of our staff show up, volunteer to work them, be with the families. And you guys know it's easier, those opportunities are easier in secondary because you have those events going on. So we have to create them and then search for them and then come. But the kids really enjoy it. And at some point I'll be slime tear shortly, which see how that goes.
By her class.
Oh yeah.
Very excited.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I do is giving leadership roles in the classroom. This is essentially classroom jobs, but it's my classroom crew, and it depends on how it goes with each class, but I tend to change it every day because some of the kids sometimes hate being one thing over another, and also I have 20 kids in a room, and there's only 10 up there, so you got to make sure that you get them through and that they feel like they're a part of it. So if I change it every day, they feel like they're being a part of it. And some of those kids really wait to be that folder stuffer or be that teacher's assistant, which is surprising to me. But little jobs for them to do make them feel important and included and successful and part of the classroom day.
And I also think that's extremely important as a life lesson. I mean, when you give kids additional responsibility, they rise to the occasion, so that, you know, then they earn more freedom to do other things. And it rang true because we have a flag team, so we have 4 fifth graders that put up and down the flag, and when he came to the office so that I can talk to him about it and train him, he must have said 5 times, "I can't wait to tell my mom, she's gonna be so proud of me." And then it was confirmed by, when he got in the car rider line, whoever put him in the cars, he said, "Mom, guess what?" The first thing he said was that. So we had last year greeters. So we trained 5th graders and 4th graders, and we put them all over in the morning so that they can greet all of our kids, because we want to start the day with positive. We just haven't had time yet to train them, but that is coming too. So we have responsibilities and jobs for kids because it's good for them.
I can think of another responsibility or role in the classroom is have a classroom greeter, so that when someone comes in, whether it be you or anyone else, and say, "Good morning, my name is, and today we're working on whatever objective or whatever I can statement they can
Well,
do.
we kind of have, it's informal right now, not to that extent, but because of all of our doors are locked and shut, and we don't use keys to open them up because we don't want them not to be unlocked and not, so we knock on the doors. And so there is one kid assigned, or a couple, that comes to the door, and they mostly do unlock it and then let you in and say welcome or hi or good morning or good afternoon. So it's informal, but then moving on to curriculum, yeah. And then we had, I talked about this before, this is the girl right here, Brianna. She was actually doing the presentation, but I think Kyle and Owen, there were some other kids that were also in the classroom. So she was explaining this Tinker program to build something for 3D printing, and there were other kids, but you know, you had two of our 5th grade classes, and everybody's just staring at the screen, like amazed at the capability and wanting to probably try it in the future. So, yeah. And they wear badges, you know, they got the badges, so they're like helpers with IT, and again, another role and responsibility, and they live up to it, rise up to it, so they're doing a good job.
And then informal class interviews, so something that our whole school tries to include throughout the week is community circles. And so I try to at least do 2 or 3 each week, and varying topics. So some can be based on what we're learning, some could be based on current events, and some could just be based on things we're interested in. Because not all community circles have to be, I think, about something that's going on in the classroom, because it's just one more way for me to learn more about the students and for the students to learn more about each other. So informal class conversations and interviews helps us do that. And with me, I have a little squishy that we pass around to make sure that each kid has their opportunity to talk, and it's their time to talk and no one else's. So that's one way that we do that in my classroom.
And it is also a restorative practice. I mean, it's a way to teach kids empathy for other kids, and they do. When you hear and you get to know those kids on a personal level, you do have more compassion and empathy for them. And it helps us as teachers, too, to give those kids that need extra support, that support.
Because sometimes they bring up things that you would never think that they would share with anybody, and so it's a great opportunity to learn a little bit about somebody or one of your students, and then take them aside later, say, "Hey, tell me more about that," or "I'm concerned a little bit that you said this," and then kind of go and dig deeper into So I think that's a really positive thing that I do in my classroom, and it's a great way to know those kids on a deeper level. Another thing I do is a student-teacher conferences, and I use we created a data and tracking binder, and just the orange sheet is what I include in my classroom, what's in that data and tracking binder. So I have I can statements, I have AR goals, I have NWEA results, I have unit assessments, and we have a section for problem solving to keep that kind of nice and neat and organized. And I sit down with students after and before even unit assessments, saying what are some goals that we need to do. After unit assessments, we sit down and I have them circle what their proficiency level is, and then they can pull this out at any time when we have extra time, that they know that what they need to work on and what they could do better on, because it's right there, it's in their desk. They could pull that out and access it at any time.
And that's one of the Hattie things that you shared
Yes.
earlier, when they start actively becoming involved in the learning process, the growth happens better.
Right. Which leads me into student engagement, which in the same binder, I have the area for the I can statements and for NWEA, and so I post the results, or we put in the results from NWEA and their scores, and I print out goal-setting worksheets. We sit down together one-on-one, and it takes a lot of time, but I think it's very important for them to know where are they and where can they get the next time, and what can we do to fill that gap in between. And so we sit down individually, we make sure we talk about what are things we can do, and then we meet a couple times thereafter just to see what are we doing to get ourselves to that next level. And I think that's important, and it's also another thing that they have quick access to. It's in their desk. So.
And two, I think, huge pieces of that puzzle is what Ms. Denfeld will say, what can you do? You know, what's your part, but she'll also say, what can I do to help you reach that goal? So it's a collaboration between the teacher and the student too.
And then using academic games and turning questions into games. So it's just always that student engagement, turning it into a little more fun aspect than just a paper pencil, because Kahoot, and then on the other side is just what Study Island can look like and what the things you could do with those things. Instead of just doing a quick paper pencil assessment, you can turn it into Kahoot and you have all the data right there when it finishes. And I've done that many, many times, and it's worked well. Other times it hasn't, but then that's when you go back and then maybe you reassess. But it's good.
If you have a competitive and highly active class, sometimes you need to step back and say, okay, everybody take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Here comes fun.
Yeah.
Here comes fun.
But it's a great way to keep the kids involved, because especially with Kahoot, there's an individual component, but you could also have team components. So depending on what you're trying to assess, it's a great way, and the same with Study Island, which I went to this summer symposium and learned a lot about things I did not know on Study Island, so I'm glad I learned that. And then closing, like encouraging mindfulness. So one thing that I do in my classroom, and it all started when we started reading the book Wonder, that I started a kind jar in my classroom, and it's not me pointing out kids who are being kind, it's other kids recognizing other peers doing kind acts. And so I have all times throughout the day saying, hey, Mrs. Denfeld, I think this person should have put a pebble in the jar. They really helped me out, and I didn't even ask them, can they put a pebble in the jar? And so then they transfer one pebble from the bucket into the jar. And I started it last year, and it goes along with the book Wonder, because the main message is just being kind. And there's a thing where you can actually send in a picture of your jar that's full, and you can be a certified kind classroom, which I think is kind of cool. And it's bragging rights a little bit, but also it's a way for students to recognize each other for doing kind acts for others.
We do have other classroom, like one particular teacher comes to mind where every hour she stops class and a teacher or a kid stands up and says, I want to recognize so-and-so. And what's pretty neat, like there's a lot of research about gratitude journals. There's so much negative in the world when you watch social media and the news and everything. It really helps kids change their filter and look for the good, not always the bad. And it's pretty neat, the dynamics and how it shifts when you're looking for positive things.
And it could be simple stuff as, this person held the door for me, and I thought that was really kind. I said, okay, go put a pebble in the jar. If you think it's worthy enough to acknowledge it, it's worthy enough to put a pebble in the jar. And then the picture on the left is something that I have done in my classroom, and I've seen done at other schools that I used to aid at before I became a teacher, and it was called a take a break corner. And there's other classrooms that call it a calm down corner, but I think this is something that's pretty essential. I think every class should have one. Essentially, it's just an area where a student, if they're getting overwhelmed, frustrated, upset, overexcited, that they can go and just take a break. It's not a timeout, it's not anything punishment-wise, but there's a little bubble timer that I say, okay, flip it over, and you have that amount of time to sit there and recollect yourself. I have bunches of fidgets that are there. I have stretch things, and some of the kids who get really frustrated just want to tense up in a ball or punch something, which is not good. So those stretch and stress items, those are what they go for, and they can just stretch it and it won't break, or squeeze it and it won't pop. But the nice thing I like about it is that there's a reflection towards it too. So they can sit down, and until that bubble timer goes and empties itself out, that's the time they have there. So it's a 3-minute timer. And I also have a 1-minute sand timer, but that's usually never enough time for those kiddos. But there's a reflection sheet, so they can look at their face. They sit down, they look at their face in the mirror. That's why the mirror is there, so they can see, what am I looking like right now? Because sometimes I'll say, hey, you look a little upset. Do you want to go take a break? And sometimes they're like, I don't look upset. What are you talking about? And so sometimes it's good to have them look at their face and know what they're recognizing. And so there is a little picture chart with little animated faces of just different emotions. So if they're not sure how they are feeling, they can look at the chart, they can look at their face and kind of match themselves. And so they can say, oh, I guess I am looking a little confused, or oh, I guess I am looking a little frustrated. So they can match their emotion. They can write that down, and then basically what happened to make them take a break, and then what are they going to do to make it better, and then are they calm and focused and ready to rejoin the class. And your ultimate goal is having them asking for it, not me telling them to go take one. But I yes, and that's another thing. One thing that sometimes the kids, I go over it at the beginning of the year of what to use it for and what are strategies you can use there. And if they're not sure when they sit down what to do, there's a little stack of calming cards they can take off the wall there. They can flip through. Some are deep breathing, some are counting, some are just, push up against the wall. Some of it is drawing, some of it is using a stress toy, stuff like that, or a stress tool, I should say, because I say they're tools, not toys. But it just helps when if they're not sure what to do there, that they have a resource to look at, and then they can use that. And this gets used multiple times a day. And I tell my kids that you don't necessarily have to ask. If you really need to take one, just go and take it, and then come and rejoin the class. Because I'd rather you go there 5 times and take a break and you be ready and focused and rejoin the class, versus you blow up, have a situation or a meltdown, and I have to help you recover from that. If they can do it on their own, that's my goal. And it's really great.
We do have a South Haven SEL team we started, and I think you are putting this together to share to all the classrooms. Because kids, I hate to say it, not just kids, the way stuff is, we all get deregulated. And the idea is to recognize that within ourselves and use strategies to regulate so that we can go back and focus. And I think that's important.
And I stress to my kids too that it could be any time, because some kids will get worked up when it's transitions, and some kids can get worked up when it's testing or whatever. And so I mean,
was very nervous about presenting in front of you, so I had to go. She walked in class and I was sitting at but I was definitely deep breathing.
But it's definitely something that I want my kids to feel open and not ashamed of using, because there's some kids that were like, I need to take a break. I don't want to tell anybody. It's like, it's okay. You don't even have to tell me. You just go, take it, do it, come back. And I just think it's a really great resource that a lot of classrooms, I think, should have some sort of calm down corner or break area where it could be beneficial to the students. And I always make sure that they do fill out that reflection, because that tells me why did they go there, because sometimes I don't know why. And sometimes if they write down something that says maybe something's happening at home, I'll just pull them aside later, say, is everything okay? Do you need to talk about it? And then go from there. But a lot of times it saves from major meltdowns, it saves from classroom distractions, and that's what really helps with that. And then, sorry.
So just very quickly, Caught in Action is part of our PBIS, so we catch kids in action doing the right things. And so all adults just pull them aside and say, hey, that was awesome, you just did this. We give them a ticket, we write down their first and last name, who gave it to them. They bring it to the office, we make this huge deal about it. Hey, great job, high five. They put it in a K1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 box. They go down and sign their name on a dry erase that we erase every weekend right across from the cafeteria so everybody can see. And then every Friday we pull, I pull 2 from each box, and we come down and we take a picture just like that and we hang them out in front. And so it's really cool because kids are excited, and we're trying to tell them it's not about being picked, it's about when you get the Caught in Action ticket doing the right thing. Because again, the goal is to get them to understand that that is right, and for them just to do it because it is right, not because they're getting a ticket. But this also goes along with, we do the mindful breathing every morning, and we talk to kids about that too. Be problem solvers, help each other breathe, and it's kind of funny. You know, kindergartners are having meltdowns and they're sitting there crying, and Cindy heard one today, and I go out there and I said, what should you do right now? Are you emotional? He said, oh, I can't breathe. So they know, so we're moving in the right direction. So it's just kind of the big picture of how we're helping kids. So I think that's it. Thank you. Good job.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good job, I like that.
Great job, yeah, thank you. And thank you
you.
for presenting that, doing great things at South Haven. And I know sometimes they call those peace corners or peace spaces too, which is,
I think it's important to just mention that, as Mr. Masico stated, although relationships and engagement was the focus, those will carry throughout the year and continue to be revisited through the way that we, address our teams. Okay, what months have we already focused on? What are those instructional strategies that are proven in the research to work? And I think it's really important to mention the value it brings to every single classroom teacher, because now they're sharing what they're using in their classrooms, being able to be unique in their own approach to things, but also sharing with a streamlined focus throughout the district on what's working for their classroom. Because sometimes some adults just need to see someone else doing it, and it will spark an idea. And so I really commend the teachers for doing this. I am so grateful that there's been such a huge buy-in to the high-quality professional development plan, and I think that it's been very refreshing from a central office standpoint to see how there's such a unique culture at each building, but the concepts are there and our teachers are utilizing them. Now we're highlighting them.
once again, great job. Dr. Alanis, do you have anything under reports or updates?
I believe I've provided all the reports and updates that anyone can handle for the evening.
I just have one thing. I did send it off to the board today. The iLearn vendor is going to be selling. I don't know what that means. However, that iLearn vendor is actually a hedge fund. Somebody who purchased it got their money from a hedge fund. And what had happened when we went from No Child Left Behind to ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act, the testing grew with the federal regulations by multiple tests. So there was many different for-profit, maybe I should say, companies who vested, had nothing to do with education, but vested into creating tests for states because they knew it wasn't district-wide, it was statewide, and iLearn is making multi-million dollars off of the state of Indiana. Where that's going to leave that test, I'm not for sure, but I think it's something important just to let everybody know that that company will be sold. So, and we're not the only state that uses iLearn, by the way, either, but we are the state that's got the first results with it. So, does anybody else have anything under other, with that being said? No, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.